So a lot of my fans or a lot of the people who watch my content, they remember on social media, my Instagram name used to be Ultra MAGA Rico. My whole thing is I wear a red MAGA hat. I'm America first. Trump was initially the first make America great president. Everything he ran on was America first. I ran with Trump because he ran with the country. Not because I'm a Trump fan, but because I'm an America fan. I'm a fan of the promise of the United States. Regardless of how our politicians might pervert it, there are certain grounding morals that our country's framework was built on. That's what I believe in. But this isn't it. It's like it's Trump versus everyone else. And none of us matter. None of us people that are here in the real world matters. None of us any longer have his ear. Once upon a time, the president was petty. He would get on Twitter and he would talk and argue with you. But now he just gets on Truth Social and he talks at us. He's not talking to us. The reason something is wrong, this isn't Trump. The Trump that we know and love is gone. Look how baggy his suit is that he's wearing. When have you ever known Trump not to be tailored to a T? Something's wrong. This isn't Trump. This isn't the same Trump. Trump, to be honest for you, doesn't have the stomach for gore. You don't wait until you're in your 80s to all of a sudden develop a bloodlust. What Trump is effectively doing with these threats against Iran for tomorrow, he's basically threatening to kill 93 million people. And he thinks, for one, he thinks that that's possible, which it isn't. For two, he thinks that the world would allow it. I'll tell you this. Europe, Russia, China, BRICS, NATO, the entire world would band together against the United States and Israel before they would allow that to happen. Many stood by because of a fear of the United States and watch what happened in Palestine on a macro scale. But could you imagine if they were actually capable of wiping out an entire country's population of 90 million people? Because if they could do it to them, that means they could do it to you. The beautiful thing is, this isn't Trump. The real Trump would have already known that that's not possible. We are only the American military. We don't have the capability to destroy an entire country in one night, a country that is literally the size of, let's say, going from Louisiana to Maine. The entire east coast of the United States, plus the Midwest. That's Iran. Do you know how large of a landmass that is? Do you know how many people that is? How many cities? How spread out? We do not have that capability, which is why we got our asses kicked in Afghanistan, and it took us 20 years to finally leave. We got ran out of Baghdad in Iraq. We lost Victoria Base. If we had the capability to snap our fingers and use the rods of God, like on the move, like the G.I. Joe movie, we would not ever have to fight anyone. And whoever the president of the United States is, essentially would just be the emperor of the world. There would be no NATO. Why would you need a NATO? You have America. What would you need? You don't need anything. You're all powerful. You're omnipotent. You're essentially God. Luckily for the world, we don't have that capability and we never will. There aren't enough nukes in our arsenal that could be launched into a country that could wipe out an entire population and level and reset that country back to the Stone Ages. It's never been done. So why do you think they can do it? That's what I mean when I say, is everybody just lost their mind since they started taking those vaccines? It's like whatever, and it's now starting to see this it's like this weird thing I'm noticing where CNN and Fox News both parallel each other with pro-war propaganda. They're not reporting to you on the destruction of Israel. Israel is being leveled. 13 countries in the Gulf, all of our military installations gone. We don't have, they've destroyed our refueling jets, depots, the planes that are going to go do these bombings. Where are they supposed to launch from if all bases in the region are destroyed? Oh, from Europe. The European nations, Spain, the UK, Poland, they've all denied us to use their air bases to launch these attacks on Iran. Why? Because if they allow you to launch from their bases, now you are a party to the war and you can get struck. It's bad for America, but it's beautiful for everyone else in the world. See, the United States is the only country in human history that has ever walked around bragging about how big their penis is when it comes to fighting wars. We walk around and we tell people we have the strongest and best military on earth. No other country is dumb enough to do that because that's a part of fighting. You never tell your enemies your strengths or your weaknesses. That needs to be a surprise. Fear of the surprise where you might lose is what keeps people at bay and it makes people respect one another. We have underestimated the hell out of Iran. We have no idea what else they have waiting for us, which is why they have not even sent in the expendable ground troops. Trump is gone. I don't know who this guy is. He's close, but there's no cigar. I don't know when they did the swap. I don't know what happened, but this is no longer Donald J. Trump. Trump never cared to threaten entire civilian populations with murder. Threatening to destroy power plants, bridges, and what would that solve? The missiles will still fly. The Iranian missiles, 40-something thousand of them, don't require electricity in bridges. Their targeting systems are off the grid. They built entire civilizations a mile underground. We're not knocking out anything. One of the only countries dumb enough to build their entire infrastructure where it's openly exposed is the United States, because we have the Pacific and the Atlantic, and the last time that was ever even remotely challenged was Pearl Harbor. And they were still 5 hours away from the mainland in California. These oceans allow us to talk shit, but we don't have to deal with the consequences. But the Europeans do. You can drive from the UK, you can drive from Paris to Tehran. It's land that's connected. You can't do that with the United States. And here we are expecting other people to throw themselves and their population and their futures in harm's way. We're facing a global catastrophe that no one has ever predicted or ever seen, because there's no more fuel allowed to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And then now they're saying, well, the United States should do a blockade of the strait so that even the Iranian oil can't get through. Okay, that's dumb, because then that affects your allies. All of Europe is running out of oil. The Chinese, the Russians are the only ones that are going to have to supply everyone. But if they're your enemy, why are you now pumping them up? The Iranians are making money hand over fist. We have a Panama Canal. We have a Suez Canal. People pay a toll to use these facilities that we own. If the Iranians have supremacy of the Strait of Hormuz, and these other countries and these corporations are going to pay their fee to pass, then who the hell are the Americans to say no? If you don't like the terms of the Iranians that are going to charge you to pass through the strait, then don't pay it and go around. They've destroyed 3 massive oil tankers in the past week. They're not playing in the strait. They have supremacy. They live there. This is not America. This is the Middle East. This is Persia, far, far away from our shores. We only can control our hemisphere from Greenland to Argentina, and barely that. We didn't even do a successful regime change in Venezuela. We just kidnapped the president. It was cool at the time, but now I'm starting to regret supporting it because now, well, we're smelling our own BS and we're believing it. The real Trump knows we can't destroy that country's entire civilization in one day. You would have, we're not sending boots on the ground. We can't get boots on the ground there. We can't land people anywhere near there. If they can destroy military bases 1,000 miles away, what do you think they can do to people that are setting up and planning an invasion that are only 60 miles away? We don't even know what they have. We don't know what they don't have. All we know is Israel is getting pummeled, hundreds of missiles per day now, and no one's reporting on it. Trump is desperate and he's embarrassed, or whoever this guy is, but this isn't Trump. But let's look at these empty threats because it's not possible. They hit a bridge. Bridges can be rebuilt. It happens. It's the cost of doing business. But also the Iranians, they needed this. There's a lot of sick people in their population that have been manipulated and brainwashed by Mossad and by the West. They want to be gay. They want to be on OnlyFans, and they want to, men want to kiss men, women want to kiss women. They want to have pride parades, all being influenced by Israel, Mossad, and the West. And they're telling them that if you want that sexual liberation so you can be gay, then you need to overthrow your government. Having children is slavery. You know that comes from the West because the blacks in America, that's all they talk about is having children, slavery, being married, slavery, paying bills, white supremacy, being an adult, responsible adult, white supremacy. That rhetoric has now overtaken that black culture rhetoric has superseded American culture rhetoric. That is now the culture in America. Our society is dying. We don't have wives anymore. We don't have children. We don't, the fundamental things that make us humans, which was coupling, creating families, having children, those are pretty much outlawed. The feminism and the gay agenda, the gay lifestyle have overtaken our country and our society. Everything here is gay. Everything's fake and gay now. Iran is fighting to keep that from their society turning into ours. That's why they're fighting hard. They're fighting to keep their wives and to keep their children because that's all that's on the line. Their humanity. Why do you think so many of us men, we now have passports? Because we want to find human wives. The ones here in America, they're not even human anymore. They don't want to be wives. They say being married is slavery. So these other countries want to remain humans. They want to have their families. They're fighting for their families at home to be safe. We're fighting for fun, to protect the Epstein class. We're fighting to protect drag queen story hour and all age drag shows. That's what we're fighting. We're fighting at completely different levels, completely different motivations. That's why we don't have a ground force that can invade anyway. The Iranians are doing what is necessary. We've already lost this war, but once the public here digests that, it's going to change our behavior. I love my country and I'm a patriot, but we need this loss. Too many wins in a row. It blew our heads up and it made us believe our own BS, where now we became bullies and we don't care about anyone or anything else. This right here is going to be a rude awakening once the public finds out our president has been over exaggerating our capabilities and who we really are to the world for many years now. Once their country is still operational 3 days from now, and they come up with an excuse for why they didn't level a landmass that's the size of Louisiana going to Maine just in one night, like we're just, what are we, the Justice? What are we, a bunch of superheroes? Well, we are Avengers. We're taking portals and wormholes and just dropping Thor's hammer and just leveling. If you don't get the hell out of here, if the Israelis had nukes, they would have used them. There are no more. There are no nukes. There never were. There are fire bombs. You can firebomb a city and the fire consumes so much oxygen where you can suffocate a massive population. That's what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Don't believe me? Excuse me. Why don't you look up what happened to Dresden, Germany during World War II? Those people were suffocated. The fire bombs. That's the best that we can do. There are no nukes. There's different reasons. They said that there's aliens that when they did try to use nukes, they disabled them. Effectively, that means there are no more nukes. For whatever reason, there are no nukes. Or the psychos in Tel Aviv would have already used them. Everything they have is destroyed, and you can't find Netanyahu shaking Trump's hand or shaking anyone's hand anymore. Zelensky's alive. You know how you know Zelensky's alive? He's still begging for money in person. None of us are seeing Netanyahu anywhere except on a screen alone. He's not interacting with anybody where they're talking about today's events. Everything he talks about now is the same stuff he could have talked about last year, June 12th. Recycled footage. This is just unhinged, and I hate to see that the administration and these people who I crossed my fingers and I hoped they would always keep their moral. They wouldn't just say whatever Trump wants to hear. They've failed us. And the good ones are gone. MTG, Marley Trader Green, gone. Kent, gone. Massey, gone. These were extremely well-versed and articulate, intelligent people who supported the United States. So effectively, they supported Trump. When there was somebody running for president who all she pushed was vaccines that make your heart explode and give you blood and cancer and abortions. That's all she offered. The fact that there are people who are now sitting here saying, oh, well, yeah, maybe we should have voted for Kamala so she could have poisoned us instead of Trump. It just shows you how sick a lot of these people that still live here in the United States really are. Just because they have citizenship and they speak English, it doesn't make them Americans. We're not all the same. We're different. But there are those who want to push killer vaccines and abortion. And those are the ones who everyone's assuming are going to win the midterms. The public's going to say, we hate Trump starting these wars so much that we're going to vote for the people that literally want to make policies to euthanize us. I don't think the pendulum is swinging that far to the left. Yeah, we don't like what Trump's doing internationally, but he's still knocking it out of the park domestically. I'm watching the rents drop. Like, remember that little ball used to bounce around Walmart? I'm watching the rents fall in the cities that have the highest deportation rates. And I'll be honest, that's just as valuable to me as oil. I'm from Los Angeles. Seeing rents go down, man, I might have to take the bus. I might get on the bus to get a bike. Rents are going down. Gas is going up. I mean, we were under Democrat rule for years. How high was gas? How much inflation were we already used to dealing with? Trump gave us relief for about, 12 months, a year. And you think you want to go back to that over Trump? Yeah, I don't know this new guy, and he's lying. We don't have that capability. I don't know, what kind of superheroes does he think our military is made out of? We couldn't even keep Afghanistan. We couldn't keep Iraq. Couldn't keep Libya. Couldn't keep Syria. We couldn't even win in Vietnam, but magically way in the future, 2026, now we can just level entire countries in one day. Our own president's full of his own BS. But the good thing is this: we're friends. I'm here to have intelligent conversations with the chat. We can have these conversations. We can debate. A lot of us are Americans, but many of us watching this and listening are not. And they're listening because they want to try to understand the mental psyche of what the average American is thinking. I'll tell you, a lot of us Americans, for us, watching Trump talk crazy like this on TV and watching these idiots on the news, it's basically watching Netflix for Americans, because at any moment, I can just turn this off. At any moment, I can just turn off my computer. I can just change the channel. It's a movie of choice. None of it matters to us because we're protected by the Pacific and the Atlantic. But see, you guys over in Europe, you guys are not protected. You guys have nothing. You're not even protected by the Americans anymore. We just got our asses kicked. 13 countries where we housed our military bases and personnel, missiles, refueling tankers, planes, ammunition dumps, LNG pipelines, wiped. We've never seen a country that could fight 13 countries at once. Actually, I take that back. Starting in 2022, we watched Russia fight NATO, 30 different countries at once, including the United States, and the Russians fucking wiped us. You know, there was a city called Bakhmut. It's now called Artemovsk. The Russians have something that we don't. It's called the rhetoric. I know this because I used to live in Germany. I speak German. I watch the German news and reporters, and they report on the newest technologies that we don't have. The Russians have it. And when it's over, the Ukrainians will still be their cousins, and it will be called whatever the Russians decide it's called. Same as Bakhmut. They will change the name of Odessa, Kharkiv, Kiev. They will change the names of these cities, and they will all still speak the same language. This whole push for pride parades in the Ukraine and the removal of Russian language and Russian heritage and Russian history from a country that really just stood for the borderlands of Russia. That's all it ever was. You think we watched Russia fight NATO, 30 countries at once. Never seen it done. They successfully did it. Who have we ever fought? We fought the Vietnamese. We lost. We fought the Koreans into a stalemate. Korea's still there. We fought. We killed Saddam Hussein, but what good did that do? We just lost the largest military base in Iraq, which is larger than Vatican City, bombed by locals and militia, and the Iranians completely evacuated, wiped. All the little GCC satellite countries where they make all that oil money that we put those people in charge, smacked, done. Won't be producing oil for a while if the Iranians say they won't. Watching this all happen in real time, how long do you think it's going to take for people to trust to go to Dubai again, or to invest their money in Kuwait or in, name a country in the GCC? These places, the Americans were allowed to put their bases there so that they would be protected. But protected from who? See, they thought that this would stop they assumed foolishly that the American presence there would prevent them from being attacked by Israel. But instead, Israel and the Americans attacked Iran, and Iran, because these are the countries that these attacks are being launched from, well, the Iranians hit them anyway. So basically Iran is doing Israel's dirty work for them. So it's still a win-win for Israel because Israel hates these countries. There's something called the Greater Israel Project. These maniacs, these Judeo-Nazis is what you would call them. That's what they are. If you look at their literature and the amount of hatred they have for everyone, and the goyim, I'm a goyim according to them, everybody is, you would understand that that's who they are. That's what they align with. And I'll be honest, I don't see people that went through something being so eager to put other people through what they went through. So that's why we're skeptics. And again, I lived in Germany. I've been to the camps. The stories are different when you're there. Like they tell you one thing here in the United States, heavily edited by who, I wonder. Let's not let those we shall not name, the Erica Kirk class, the Epsteins. The propaganda they tell you in schools, you're raised to believe it. But when you actually travel and you live in these other countries and you speak to people whose grandparents were alive, and they tell you the truth. So when you see what's happening in Palestine and what they did, you start to ask a lot of questions, and you start to notice that there's a pattern of behavior. So when someone says it's people are acting like psychopaths and just murderous, there's a pattern of behavior. Until recently, they were never feeling the pain of their decisions. Now they are not able. There is no more Iron Dome. That's a dud. They can't replenish it. So the missiles are getting through. It just shows you how terribly selfish some of these people are that are in that government who would be following Netanyahu to prison. But I guess Netanyahu went to sleep one day, woke up and said, I guess he just decided that he wasn't prison material anymore. And then October 7th began. And as long as there's a conflict in Israel, Netanyahu will never go to jail for corruption. He's supposed to go to jail for corruption. He won't go to jail as long as you can keep this forever war going. But to be honest with you, once the American people are become this disconnected from the American government, well, now we have a problem. And this puts us into a constitutional crisis when our own government goes rogue. We have to reel this in. These threats coming from Trump that we're going to play for you in a second, these threats are about tomorrow. He's threatening to do this in what? Well, let's see here. It's already 8 hours ahead. So we're like 12 hours from now is when these threats are supposed to come true. We don't have the capability. And if he tries, what if they hit us? We don't know if they can. We had an open border for 4 years. They caught thousands of Iranian scientists, men with glasses on from Iran with no children or women in tow, who told us, you don't know my name, but you will. Said it in English. Spoke Farsi, English, French. These are trained, intelligent men. How did they get to Mexico? Did they catch a flight from Tehran to Cancun? What, thousands of them all at once? But we're sitting here talking as if we are basically a country on the moon. We're protected and we're completely safe. But that's not true because of what happened in the past 4 years. We don't know who's here. But also, don't forget, the UK is now claiming they're going to let us do launches from there. And there's a couple other countries. And when these countries are hit, then what? We don't know their total capability. And the Russians are not going to let Iran fall. Neither is the Chinese. They're not going to let Iran fall. They can't. They're bricks. And I swear, if you go watch my old content, I reported and I spelled out everything BRICS stood for, what it meant, how it could potentially be the future. But I said there's no way BRICS can become a thing because, yes, the sanctions were horrible. They want to get around sanctions. Having their economies tied to the U.S. dollar, knowing the U.S. can freeze their money, you're better off just saying, keep the money. I'd rather be broke and start over again. But then Trump won. Faith was restored to the U.S. dollar. The petrodollar, faith was reserved because Trump promised to end the sanctions because they don't work. These countries didn't buckle under sanctions. And now here we are. They're going to want to get off the petrodollar. Where does that leave us? And I'll be honest, it seems like that's the place that Trump is talking from, a place of desperation. And I'm MAGA, but I'm not dumb. We're not fans. We're not fanatics. We're not fans. We're not just people out here. Oh, we just like Trump because his name rhymes with bump. We liked Trump because of what he stood for. And we saw the results his first term. I remember Trump begged Trump begged you idiots to not take that fucking injection that's giving you all cancer. He begged you not to take it. He actually offered therapeutics. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. I know because I had to order it from India and other parts of the world. We couldn't get it here in the United States. Apparently, whatever those towers causing that electromagnetic radiation exposure sickness, the one that made you lose your sense of taste and smell, the electromagnetic radiation sickness temporarily. But they convinced you that it was some unknown magical virus that came from a bat taking a back swim in some soup. But you believed it and you went out and took these things. But Trump offered you. That's why I said he wasn't completely corrupt. He begged people not to do it. He even said the masks were idiots. People wearing all these masks were dumb. Don't listen to them. He tried. I can remember that. I don't know why us Americans collectively have amnesia, but I remember those days. That was only in 2020. It's like 5 years ago, 6 years ago now. And I remember the early days. So I have faith in Trump, but this is not like him in his character. He's never called for mass violence against anyone. Ever. He believes in deportation. He believes in mass, arresting of criminals in basically restoring law and order to lawless cities by just providing National Guard and more police presence to help preserve life. He's never spoke so candidly about killing civilians or anyone. That's why I said this isn't him. I don't know how desperate you must get to change your entire character, unless this is someone else. Well, I'm sorry. I keep talking about it. I don't even want to. I'm embarrassed to play this because I'm a Trumper. I'm literally wearing a MAGA hat as we speak, but I'm going to play it for you anyway because I'm unbiased and I try to be transparent. And then we can have this conversation and I can go through the comments. So let's take a listen.
They have till tomorrow. Now we'll see what happens. I can tell you they're negotiating, we think, in good faith. We're going to find out. We're getting the help of some incredible countries that want this to be ended because it affects them also. A lot of people are affected by this, but we're giving them till tomorrow, 8:00 Eastern time. And after that, they're going to have no bridges. They're going to have no power plants. Very little is off limits.
Are there certain kinds of civilian targets, though? I'm thinking schools.
I don't want to tell you that. I don't want to tell you that. We have a plan because of the power of our military, where every bridge in Iran will be decimated by 12:00 tomorrow night, where every power plant in Iran will be out of business, burning, exploding, and never to be used again. I mean, complete demolition by 12:00. And it'll happen over a period of 4 hours if we wanted to. We don't want that to happen. We may even get involved with helping them rebuild their nation. And you know what? If that's the case, the last thing we want to do is start with power plants, which are among the most expensive things.
We're not good at nation building. We never rebuilt Iraq. I have a fun fact for you. The first heart transplant in a human happened in a hospital in Baghdad. There are no hospitals anymore in Baghdad that have that capability any longer. Now, we destroyed that place over 15 to 20 years. Afghanistan was never really developed to begin with. And we never built up Afghanistan. We didn't rebuild Syria. The only place that I can say that the United States did have some successful nation building, but it didn't come well. Okay, Guam is one, Saipan two. I would say Hawaii after World War II, but it was already a state. So I don't know. Where has the Americans went, destroyed everything, and then successfully rebuilt it, put a Wendy's, a Papa John's, and a Coca-Cola factory on every corner? It's never happened. We've never nation built to a country where they're so loving. Now they speak English. They listen to Led Zeppelin, and they're like semi-Americans. There's no such place on earth. That place only exists in our imaginations as Americans because we are not just mentally, but we're physically disconnected from the world. The United States is just as disconnected from the rest of the world as California is disconnected from the rest of the country. Completely different places. You don't even know California is a part of the United States. Effectively, they're not. California, Oregon, Washington State, America, where? They don't even follow federal laws. Completely disconnected from the East Coast. If you're in the East Coast or you're in the South or the Midwest, you can drive cities and you're in America. If you're in California, unless you're in Phoenix or Vegas, you're 12, 15 hours, 20 hours from the United States. It's completely disconnected. So you develop these delusions of grandeur. Again, Iran is the size of from Louisiana at its lowest western point to the southern tip of Maine. And then it also is why as going from Louisiana all the way up through the UP of Michigan. It's not a small country. We don't have millions of fighter jets and tons and billions of bombs that we can just, where are we going to launch this attack from? Which bases can, remember, our planes that do all the refueling of the jets that have been flying these missions, they've all been destroyed in the past 2 weeks. You don't know about it because CNN and Fox News don't tell you. I've reported on it. Professor Jang have reported on it. Let's see here. Colonel McGregor has reported on it. There's certain people, if you watch the guys from Iran, Alex Mercurius, Alexander Christorafu, they've literally reported on this damage and destruction. We can't even run these missions over these countries in the way we've been doing because we've been debilitated over the past 2-3 weeks. That's why now Trump is doing all this talking. He's bluffing right now. He's hoping he can bluff Iran into folding. The problem is, it appears that Iran also has a deep state shadow government that works interdependently of the Ayatollah and the surface regime that's completely intact. They haven't lost one person. They are somewhere far away from the big city, deep underground. And if you just knew the precision of these strikes and the targets they've been hitting in 13 different countries simultaneously for over a month now, you would understand that this is beyond just a country defending itself. The intel they have it's unbelievable by American standards. We don't have these capabilities. People are mumbling that, oh, the Russians or the Chinese are fit. The truth of the matter is we don't know and we'll never know. We don't, and it doesn't matter. We shouldn't be fighting them in the first place. We have, as Americans, we have fatigue, but as humans, we're done. There's nothing worth fighting for anymore. We have the internet. We have the internet. We all know that you can fit the entire population of the world inside of Texas. It would basically just be just as densely populated as New York. That means there are enough space, enough resources for everybody. So what are we fighting for? We're fighting for a handful of people to stay out of prison, to keep their wealth, and to avoid justice. And they're hoping there's like not a mob rule takeover. You know, some people have their lust for power, but it's not like any of us are being threatened here in the United States by anyone. The only threat we have against us is coming from the country that is that little small one that was created back in 49. That's the only country threatening us. And you know they're threatening us because they have a doctrine called the Samson doctrine, you know, where they already have allegedly they have one, but that's only if you believe in nukes, which I don't. There are no nukes. To watch him talk about this and talk about their bridges, their power plants, do you think these people are that dumb? They knew the United States was eventually going to invade them and attack them 20 plus years ago. They didn't build their power plants on the surface. They didn't put their infrastructure on the surface. It's underground. Why do you think he keeps coming out and saying, yeah, we're negotiating, we're beating them and destroyed, but all these other countries are taking a beating to hell every single day, to the point where our news stations won't even report on them. It's so embarrassing. And it completely contradicts what Trump is saying, showing a disconnection between him and reality. And even CNN that hates Trump is literally spewing propaganda showing, oh, wow, we just bombed Iran. Iran just hit 13 countries at the same time in one day. They took out our long-range missile detection system that was literally a top secret installation. They removed it. There is no more 17 minutes where you're given a heads up that there are missiles on their way to you. Those are all gone. There's no more detection systems, and there's no rebuilding these things. Iran's already facing Armageddon because of these threats from the United States anyway. And if they do a ceasefire, all that's going to do is just do what the Americans and the Israelis did a year ago. Give them more time to regroup, replenish, restocks, and hit them again. You know, you gotta, what do they say in life? You have to learn from the mistakes of others. Remember the what was it, the Maidan 1 and Maidan 2 in Russia, where the all of NATO made these agreements with Russia, and they eventually came out. The prime minister of Germany came out and said, we were never going to honor those agreements we made with the Russians. We were just trying to buy time so we could build up our militaries in the Ukraine. Literally lied and stabbed the Russians in the back. Why would anybody trust the West again? After with our history of lies and deceit, it'd be foolish. Iran, they can't stop. I don't care what you do to the surface of that country. The people who are in charge are underneath. And what if it's not people? What if they already have an AI running their system? Because the laser precision of their strikes lately, if you only knew the infrastructure that they've been targeting. They hit a place, it's Dimona in Israel. But then they also hit a facility 100 miles away, which was a top secret underground base where they kept a lot of their generals and their classified plans. A place that was never even officially listed as an Israeli installation. That place is gone now. How did Iran know the strike there? It's not like they're just hitting targets like when you're playing a video game and you're shooting. No, there's something else going on. And I don't think they're going to stop. They can't stop. Because if they do stop, well, then their country will be divided up into territories. It'll be destroyed. The men will lose their families. They'll lose their wives. They'll lose their children. They will lose their entire society. To what has Israel in the West? What have they done? They've pushed the gay agenda. Everyone's a feminist or gay. We have no more families. There's no more marriages. That's what's awaiting any of these countries that follow in our footsteps. Just go ask those in the UK. We're literally, it's up to the people individually. We're begging for morality laws to be re-implemented to keep women from literally destroying themselves on the internet. We're begging for those laws to come. They have those laws in Iran. That's why those people still get married and have families, and we don't. They're fighting to keep their society away from us. And all we're asking in the United States is for us to leave these other societies alone and focus on America. We got what we need. We don't need to import anything anymore. So I ask the question again, what are we fighting for? What are we fighting to conserve? What are we fighting to protect? Again, drag queen story hour, all age drag shows, child mutilation surgery for 8-year-olds, removing body parts, convincing kids that are autistic due to vaccine damage that you're actually not autistic. Maybe you're just trans. Maybe you're just gay. That's what so you think I'm supposed to go fight in another part of the world against people that have families that are conservative and normal humans. And you want me to go over there and try to destroy them in the name of protecting the mentally ill masses that are literally growing and surrounding me and my family here in the United States? It doesn't make sense. The soldiers understand that, which is why they're sabotaging the aircraft carriers that are going to the Gulf, and they're having to turn around and leave. Also, Iran is hitting them. Remember, we're only fighting Iran right now publicly. What do you think Russia and Wagner are going to do if we ever thought that there was going to be a successful ground invasion? You don't think the Russians, the Chechens, those strong battle-trained soldiers that have been smacking the Ukrainians, 3 NATO armies they destroyed, those battle-tested men, you don't think they can put on Iranian uniforms and do the same thing Americans and NATO did in the Ukraine and just put on uniforms and fight on their behalf? Why do you want to fight them? Why do you want to fight them? Those are actual men. They're not confused with their sexuality. Those are actual men with wives and children. Why would you, a gay layman who's confused about life, nothing to live for, why do you think you stand a snowball's and chance in hell fighting against actual men? And why am I the only one doing the math? All this information is available, but you're watching reality TV. I ask you to like this video, share the video so I can talk to your friends and family members as well, but also subscribe to my channel. I'm an America First person, Rico Limbaugh. If you're watching this, come over to YouTube, Rico Limbaugh on YouTube. I'm an America First, but that also means I have to put Americans first, individuals. Trump is just another American. I'm not going to let one person put so many of us at risk. This one move, if we lose the strait or if they get boxed in too much, it'll literally starve the world of oil that they need, and it'll set back the economy for years. I need the economy to flourish. I own businesses. I have a life. So one American's idiotic bad moves can affect my bottom line. I can't have that. So I'm trying to help us protect Americans from ourselves right now. We are the only ones we have to worry about. Now, I'm a Trump person. He's batting a 400 domestically. But when it comes to this, where Israel tells you what to jump and you say how high because you want access to their technology, fine. But we got to let some of it go. I know everybody wants access to Epstein's technology. And I'm not saying that to bullshit you. Epstein invented the looking glass technology. Essentially, he created something called genetic algorithms. They were looking for patterns in nature. But with the scientists that he recruited from Los Alamos base in New Mexico, that he brought to Santa Fe, New Mexico, to his ranch, they were using high energy physics and math to create genetic algorithms which would predict the future. They wanted to be able to see the stock market ahead of time. Then all of a sudden, 10 years later, a complete blackout of what they were researching and what their progress were. He was able to start winning the lottery. And people are saying maybe there was just corruption. Maybe he just paid off. Do you know how many different people would have to be in on that for you to win the lottery twice? He was demonstrating what he discovered in his technology. The looking glass technology, that's Epstein. Bitcoin technology, that's Epstein. The vaccine to wipe out black people, poor people, that's Epstein technology. Why do you think you keep seeing all your favorite blacks sick and dying every day on television? It was created specifically for them. But then also anyone else that's high testosterone is, that's an American thing anyway, but it was specifically made for one particular group. It was supposed to be safe for everyone else, but effective in their group because you would have to look for certain genetic factors or genetic traits that they have in common. You can't really make a race-based weapon because everyone's too mixed. You could appear dark, but be actually part of the group that they want to save. Or it could be the other way around. So you had to look for certain common denominators in that group. The common denominator in the targeted, the poors, the blacks, was elevated testosterone levels. It's in nature. It follows along with dark pigment. It's humans. Epstein figured that out. Bill Gates was actually some of the people that helped persuade by paying and honeypotting the politicians to help remove the restrictions that it would usually take to get a vaccine approved. And Fauci was able to get it into the public's bodies, into their arms. I have all the data. I explain it to people in details. Some people listen, some people don't. It's actually a war weapon also. It was designed so if a soldier has the injection in them, if they see gunfire in the distance or they hear bombs going off or they know they're about to go fight, the adrenaline rush you get before you go into battle, it'll cause your heart to rupture. You have a coronary on the spot. So imagine you're on the battlefield and half the people you're about to go fight, just from the anticipation of the fight alone, they fall over. Why do you think you're seeing so many heart attacks during sex or while they're playing basketball or while they're jogging or working out? Or they're not just having heart attacks at 80 years old and dying in your sleep anymore. The game has changed. If I can figure it out, other people can too. So it's my job to relay this information to you. The looking glass technology is important. It's how Israel's been able to stay ahead. Such a very small country the size of Jersey, basically running our nation and essentially being in control of our arsenal in an attempt for world domination. That obviously they can see. Obviously they have some technology the rest of us don't have, which is looking glass technology, which is why before these massive tragedies happen, 6 months before they happen, you got people in Israel Googling the people who are the stars of the show. But right after them, people in DC are Googling Tyler Robinson and all these unknown people. Months before these events happen, they're being Googled because Google keeps track of certain searches that you can see, Google searches, and you can see where they're coming from. Israel and DC, they share information with us. But at what point, because we don't have the looking glass technology here, at what point can they just fabricate certain information, feed it to us, and we act on impulse? Or how many times has that happened? Did they feed us information about an imminent attack from Iran, and that's why Trump was so confident and so comfortable attacking them on behalf of Israel? That's more likely than, we were just going to try to randomly get a regime change out of the blue for no reason when they're not even threatening us. If you don't believe what I'm saying, go watch my previous videos. Watch his Steve Bannon interview. I believe it's at the 17-minute mark. There's certain markers you can see where he talks about what he was doing in Los Alamos. He talks about the genetic algorithms. He talks about how the fact that they were actually trying to study the part of physics and science that's a gray area, that's the unknown. He said there are certain aspects of life and of reality that we don't understand. He brought in and recruited the scientists from the Manhattan Project, which was discontinued in 93 or 91 after the fall of the Soviet Union because, well, we don't need to make nukes anymore. The Soviets are gone. He recruited them to study these areas of science and physics. He briefs, so he talks about it, but you have to watch those Epstein interviews. The reason they dilute you with all the kids' sex stuff is because they don't want you to think about, well, what was the technology that he was working on with Maxwell and these other people. You know, Maxwell, before she was an accused pimp pedophile lady, she worked for a company that essentially owned the oceans. And she used to operate underwater vehicles. These are highly intelligent educated researchers and scientists, physicists, mathematicians. But somebody above them wanted their technology, wanted their work, and wanted them out of the way. All because we want access to that all because we want access, we want to be able to temporarily see the future. We're literally risking destroying the global economy. I mean, in that case, we're better off just rolling the dice and just letting whatever's going to happen. Seeing the future cannot be that important that we are risking all of this. Maybe I would have said something different a month ago. I didn't know things could get this bad this fast. And Trump's going to be president for 3 more years, God willing. We need to rein him in, bring him back home. He's in the clouds right now. But having access to technology where you can see the future, or if you think you can see the future, it's invaluable because you can also predict your own mortality too. You know when someone's going to try to kill you. You know when someone's going to do something to you. But, the problem is when you're being spoon-fed information, you always have to ask who's holding the spoon. Right now, we know which country, and, the guy who used to hold the spoon, he's gone. You might not want to believe it, but there's no more nets and there's no more Yahoo drinks. That's over. So where do we go from here? Do we let him write a check that our asses can't cash here in the United States? We're disconnected from him. I just want him to come back home and focus on us and focus on our country. This isn't it.
And bridges. You saw the bridge one. We were very close to a deal. And then I got a call from Mr. Witkoff, Mr. Kushner, and JD saying, I think they're breaking the deal. I said, tell them that's okay. Don't worry about it. But tell them to look out their window and watch. And within 45 minutes, I gave the order to knock out the biggest bridge. I gave the order, knock out the biggest bridge in, I believe, the Middle East, but the biggest bridge.
Nobody gives a damn about a bridge. Trump, their population size is still 93 million. Bridges can be rebuilt. We have companies. They have companies. You know how much concrete people in the Middle East pour? That can be repaired. You can hit as many bridges as you think you can. They're still going to keep bombing Israel. They're still going to blow up our infrastructure. And if they hit those desalination plants, there's only 5 of them in Israel. Israel has 5 desalination plants that basically what they do, they pull in water from the oceans or from, nearby bodies of water that have salt water. And they use like mitosis or whatever. And they have these huge machines and they purify the water to remove the salt. And that's how they're able to supply drinking water to these desert populations where people should not live. These are not places where there's natural water for people to drink. So technically humans should not live there. It's like building a city in a desert. Iran has not hit those plants yet. They could. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow if they try to blow up another power plant? Or what are you going to do? Hit 100 power plants, even underground ones, in one launching from where? These other countries are not going to allow you to launch these planes. Planes they can't just run without fuel. Where are you? We don't have it. We're not able to do it. It's a lie. So he's bluffing right now, hoping by tomorrow they're going to flinch. I bet you he doesn't sleep tonight. He's waiting to see what the last card on the river is going to be. Iran has already went all in. There is no bluffing for them. They're all in. I'll be honest with you. You think Iran is alone being all in? So is Spain. So is France. France called today for a coalition of countries to oppose the United States. What do they tell you? What do we all know? The friend of my friend is my enemy. That means if France is looking for a coalition to stop the United States and Israel, well, now you're on the same side as Iran and Russia and China. So what that means is that you're at risk of also leaving NATO abruptly and joining BRICS to isolate the United States, to neuter us. This is a slippery slope. The Spanish were the first. Then the British, Keir Starmer, we're not going to allow you to launch from our bases. But now the United States has pressured them. They said, we'll allow you. But France and the rest of Western Europe said no. The other bases have been smacked. There is no landing planes or launching planes from there. The Turks are not going to allow you to do it. Where are you planning on getting all these places where you can just launch these magical, amazing, country-destroying attacks? We're not the Avengers. You can't just level entire cities with a thought. It's not possible. And there are no nukes to drop, or they would have dropped by now. He's bluffing. And then they can pretend like they hit a bunch of these places, but when you find out that country's population is still 93 million, well, then you got to say, okay, my president's a liar, or maybe he's just misinformed. What do they say? It's drinking the Kool-Aid. He's listening to Kushner. He's listening to Zionists, convincing him what to think and what to believe about the world. I know this because there were Zionists there were homosexual Zionists like Anderson Cooper and Don Lemon that used to tell me what to think about Trump before I started listening to him for myself. So I can understand Trump drinking the Kool-Aid. I used to drink it too. But he's wrong. And we don't have the capabilities. And there's others like me. We're not just speaking to just anyone. Right now there's going to be thousands of people that are going to watch this. And I appreciate all the new followers and people that are sharing. Thank you. But we have to talk to each other eventually. We can't allow this to happen around us. We're still conservatives, and we're still going to be on the right. We're never going to say, okay, I'm so upset with what Trump is doing. I'm going to go support child sex mutilation and drag queen story hour and all the gay kids and trans. It's never going to get that bad. But we have to literally stick to what we believe in and what we support in our own agenda. An America first, an Americans first agenda. We'll finish off the rest he had to say. Actually, let's go through some of the comments. What did Iran do to America? I'm Canadian and I'm all about sovereignty. Why not leave Iran and countries alone? The U.S. got run by an empire. Be honest, you are absolutely 1,000% correct. Unfortunately, though, you are Canadian. The Canadians were handed over to the globalists. Under Trudeau, you guys have lost your sovereignty. Your country has already been divided up. The globalists have brought in the North Africans and the Muslims, and they've divided up your country between the Chinese and other groups. You're the Canadians. If you're a native Canadian, if you're white, you're pretty much going extinct. And then that's it. So it's crazy. We have the globalists taking over Canada to the north, and we have the Zionists with a Jewish president to the south. The United States used to be a Zionist stronghold, but the globalists have put a Muslim mayor in charge of New York. Now the Zionists have been pushed to the bottom right corner of our map, Miami, and their numbers are dwindling. They are no longer welcome or safe in most cities in the United States, because the truth about the agenda that they have is out there. But I tell you this, the globalist agenda for the United States is not any better. The globalist agenda is not, the Zionist agenda was the gay agenda. The globalist agenda is the trans agenda, transhuman. which leads to not just depopulation, but to an extinction. The globalists want there to only be 500 million from 8 billion plus. That's their agenda. So there is no, I mean, it's kind of like you're replacing the enemy you do know for the enemy that you don't. Neither one of them have the best interests of Americans in mind, why when Trump said that we're not going to put our country's future in the hands of the globalists with their doom and gloom, but we can't leave it in the hands of the Zionists. The globalists have penetrated the cabinets in these other countries, but our cabinets have already been penetrated by the Judo-Zionists from Israel. So it's if you look at the title of this video, I mean, Trump's stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's Israel first or America first. His money comes from Israel first. His support base is the Americans because we have the numbers. We also have the weapons, and we have the ability to speak on the internet freely, like I'm doing now. Excuse me, which is a privilege. I know it's a privilege because my friends in other countries lost it. So it's not a right. This is a privilege, and it can be taken away. This is we're in uncharted territories right now, but as a Canadian, you are absolutely right. And you're right, they're not the Avengers, and real lives are being lost. But it can get so much worse if what Trump was saying was even possible. But my God, what if it was possible, like in another universe, and you could just one day the American military can wipe out an entire country of 93 million? You know what that would mean? That would mean the entire world would have to come together and get rid of us as Americans, because we would be way too dangerous to leave. There was only one other group that everybody accuses of having this same agenda. What happened to them? Well, I can tell you what happened to them, the Nuremberg trials. Why are we starting to parallel? Well, I mean, they say we're parallel. I don't see it. But as far as the whole global domination thing, well, that's us right now. Threatening to wipe entire countries off in one day, like we're Thanos. So what is Trump going to put on the glove, dye his skin purple, and then get dropped off in the middle of the Persian Gulf and just snap his finger and boom, 93 million people gone, cities turned to dust? We can barely turn a parking lot into a parking lot. Have you noticed all the potholes? We're not going to be able to turn Iran, a country that size, and other nations who depend on that country's stability, that know they're going to be next. They're not going to allow us to do that either.
In Iran, and within 10 minutes after I gave that order, that bridge was over. Us charging tolls?
Iran.
What about us charging tolls?
Is that something you're considering?
I'd rather do that than let them have them, right? Why shouldn't we? We're the winner. We won. Okay.
We know, what does winning look like? Because we lost. We lost it all. Sanosi says that I saw in Europe that it is the United States that finance all that finance all European neo-Nazis, even in Ukraine. All Ukrainian neo-Nazis have been financed by the United States. That is an absolute fact. They're called the Banderites. They are in the Ukraine, and they are literally the remnants that are the leftovers from the Reich that escaped the Nuremberg trials, and they went east. And they went into the Ukraine. They're really, that's where they are. And it's crazy, as an American, they would they would call people Nazis as a slur, but then they will simultaneously put a Ukrainian flag in their bio. Now, you remember when the Russians' invasion first began, Russia's not at war with the Ukraine. It's still just an SMO, a special military operation. One of the goals of the SMO was to denazify the Ukrainian government. What that means is that remove all neo-Nazi elements from the Ukrainian government, because apparently the neo-Nazis don't see the Russians as being their own people, as being Aryans. They don't see them that way. They see them as their enemies. Even though they're cousins, they see them as enemies. That Nazi element in the Ukrainian government is what the Russians used to justify, one of the reasons they used to justify their invasion. Also, because the Americans and the West are financing the neo-Nazis, they're beholden to NATO and the Americans. So they wanted to join NATO, even though the country is too poor and too corrupt to ever be an EU nation or in NATO. But just the thought of it alone and dancing around it and pretending that it was going to happen, that means you could now start bringing American equipment and start building American bases in the Ukraine. So the Russians did what they had to do. Still an SMO, but you're absolutely right. The West funds Nazis in the Ukraine, and the Russians, their SMO goal was to remove the Nazis from the Ukraine. And the Russians have all but succeeded. The problem is with Nazism is that it's more so a mindset, kind of like communism. And for certain people, it's going to appeal to them like communism based on their personality type. But so it's really kind of hard because you can choose to be a Nazi and then you can choose to not be a Nazi. Or you can choose to be a communist one day and then you can grow out of it and decide you want to get a job and take care of yourself and no longer be a communist. You go back and forth. But it shouldn't be an option where you can band together with a bunch of other Nazis or a bunch of other communists. That's a big problem we have here in America. We have too many communist enclaves in the country that are basically destroying our economy. We call them hoods or ghettos. And what they are communist strongholds where they have a communist utopia full of people who don't have to work. Their housing and their food and their education is subsidized by those of us who live in a capitalist society. Our tax dollars fund their communist utopia in these inner cities. And they don't have to live with the consequences of the things they vote for because of our entitlement policies that create these communist utopias for them. That's why we're trying to get rid of the entitlements. That's why we're trying to get rid of birthright citizenship. These people should live in other countries that allow that instead of trying to turn our country into that. So yes, that what you're saying is absolutely true about the Nazis being funded by us. And we're funding Nazis because we were hoping they're going to help us destroy Russian society. What kind of idiot monsters do we have in our deep state that are coming up with these delusional ideas of grandeur? And how would we feel if these other countries publicly came out and said their goal was to eventually destroy and remove the United States from Earth? And we would just sit here like, hey, we want to just be left in peace. If the people in Iran want to have families, they want to get married, they want to have children, and they want to, believe in God, why do we have to stop them? Why do we need to invade them so that they are forced to live like us, which is godless, no children, no families? You guys all know that those things are gone now. 20 years ago is when it started to go downhill. I think probably after Obama. Now to be married and have children is akin to slavery. If you ask a lot of women publicly here in the United States, we don't have families anymore, but other parts of the world do, which is why they don't have pride parades. You can't have both. Pride parades mean there are no families. There's no, you can't have kids. Adam and Steve can't have children. That's not how it works. So you would have to protect your society and keep that away. But you're not going to be able to have both. One is going to eventually target the other. And they've openly announced that they are coming for our kids because they can't have their own. But I'm supposed to go fight in another country to defend the San Francisco Gay Men's Choir when they're literally telling you the agenda for the Democrat Party. Unbelievable. But no, we're not fighting for that. These countries are. We want you to leave them alone, and we want you to focus on cleaning up our country, removing these laws that protect pedophiles. They have a law in California, Senate Bill 145. And I have to read it to people. They didn't even know they passed it. They were pretending to be outraged by the Epstein files. Epstein never changed the laws to protect pedophiles. That was Gavin Newsom, 2019, Senate Bill 145. Don't believe me? Look it up. I've done where I've talked about it. But we have that issue here in the United States, and other parts of the world don't want to go, they don't want to do it. There was an archbishop, a Christian archbishop from Russia, and he said these wars going forward are going to be between countries that have pride parades versus countries that won't allow them. And that's exactly what this is. They don't do pride parades in Iran. They don't do pride parades in China, and they don't do pride parades in Russia. Effectively, their societies are still intact. They're still human. So then what are we? What are we?
They are militarily defeated. The only thing they have is the psychology of, whether to drop a couple of mines in the water. No, we have a concept where we'll charge tolls. Okay? I thought.
Well, Maddie, what do you? Maddie says, did you just say there are communist strongholds in America called ghettos? Well, they're not just called ghettos; they're called the hood. Have you ever been to the hood? You ever been to New Orleans? You ever been to Minneapolis? You ever been to Los Angeles? You ever been to Oakland? There's people just walking around all day. They don't have jobs because they don't want to work. And you can tell the difference between people. You go to some states and you'll drive through, the black part of town, for example. The people speak normal English because they're professionals. They work. But then you go to other cities, Democrat-ran cities, and you notice when they speak, you can't understand them because they've never needed to sound professional because they've never worked and they will never work. So there's no need to be professional or coherent for that matter. And that's what feeds our prison industrial complex. That's where the source comes from. So that's why they leave those enclaves and they kind of let them, they live there, that we subsidize them. And by subsidize, I mean my tax dollars goes towards paying for Section 8. A $2,000 rent, but you pay $14. If you're getting food stamps, if you're getting government assistance, that's all money that comes from tax dollars generated by those of us who live in the capitalist part of our society. We don't get to live like the communists and get everything subsidized and covered for us. Why do you think when you go into the hoods in America, it looks like Cuba? But then when you go to the suburbs that they envy and they're so jealous of, well, it looks way better because we have HOAs and we pay for stuff because we work and we earn. There's a difference. People who live in these inner cities, in these blue cities, that they're subsidized. That's communism. And that's not what America was built to be. The way it worked in America initially was if you don't work, you don't eat. And one big part of what comes with freedom is responsibility. You're free to work as much as you want or as much as you don't want. You can work as many hours or as little. It's up to you. You determine your own destiny. But also what comes with the freedom that comes with responsibility comes with freedom. You're responsible for yourself and you're responsible for your family. And a lot of people have lost it. If you're a communist in this country, they're creating kids and they're dumping them off on the system. And it's up to the rest of us to pay for it and subsidize it. That's what I mean by these communist strongholds here in the United States. And they vote blue because that's a Democrat thing. That's how they get their borders, is because they promise to not touch their entitlements, or they're siphoning money from the rest of us to support their addiction to communism. And eventually it's going to have to be starved out because eventually we're not going to want to keep paying for that, because what is it producing? The worst elements of our society. You're paying for people who eventually are going to grow up and try to rob and kill you. That's how it goes. Unfortunately, that's our system here. And it has to change. And we have 50 years of case study, integration, 64? And we figured out the forced integration doesn't work. So people self-segregate. And it turns out the communists segregate themselves into the inner cities, while the rest of us have portions of our earnings taken away from us, which is redistributed back to them, but also to the Somalian scammers, the Mexican scammers, the healthcare scammers, the hospice scammers. Everybody's getting a piece of what we generate. And we're eventually, we're tired of it now, but we're going to collectively be tired of it, and we're going to push back against it soon. So that's what I mean when I say that.
Your question would have been more accurate if you said us. Go ahead. We have to have a deal that's acceptable to me. And part of that deal is
no, Republican people don't necessarily take money from the government. It's not, that's, you want the people that take money from the government, they want more taxes because that means more for their entitlements. When you're voting Republican, you're voting against that. That's how it works. So the answer to your question, no.
Going to be, we want free traffic of oil and everything else.
Maddie said, you're still going. Maddie, you still here? So yeah, of course I'm still going. Thanks for being here. You don't have to send any money. You don't have to Cash App. All you have to do is just be here in the chat, watch the video. That's all I'm asking. This is our exchange. We can sit here and we can have these conversations. The people who disagree, they're leaving comments. Everyone else is just listening because it's resonating. They can get off the computer and actually go look up some of this stuff or just look around. And that's why they're still here. And I appreciate you guys for tuning in because, well, somebody has to talk to us. Our president is talking to himself. He's not negotiating with these other countries. And I'll be honest, these countries are losing all of their wealth. Those GCC countries, the reason our petrodollar is propped up is because of them. I don't know what this means for the petrodollar. I don't necessarily understand how it can survive if this goes any further. Everything for us is relatively cheap here in the United States. When I used to live in Europe, we used to pay $9 a liter of gas when gas was only $1.87 a gallon in the United States because of the petrodollar. If we lose the petrodollar because the countries that you buy their oil using the American dollar are now gone, well, then you're going to have to buy oil in rubies or the Iranian, whatever they're charging, whatever currency they're going to use, or it might be the petro yuan. Then what does that mean for the United States? Now, luckily for me, I have an evacuation point. I have another country I live in, so I can leave. But everyone else here in the United States, for the most part, they speak one language. They've never left this country. They wouldn't be able to survive anywhere else. And it's going to be such a fall from grace that it'll be chaos over here. When we've seen riots, we've seen it. We know it can happen. But do you know how happy they're going to be to just blame Trump for everything? That's why I'm saying, because of this man's hubris, they more so want to just embarrass Trump by any means necessary. And if that means you and your family and your children are going to have to deal with the consequences, then so be it. They want you to hate Trump because they never want a nationalist president to ever run again. They never want you to vote for an America First president again. They want you to be a globalist, one world government zombie, voting in the interests of everything else except yourself. And I'll be honest with you. I mean, I see a couple of people that I thought were on the right side of history falling in line with some of this rhetoric. And it's weird. It's like, there's got to be things you disagree with. You can't just go along with every single thing. You have to have your own mind. But just because you question something doesn't mean you've abandoned him or you don't believe in it. Again, he's batting a 400 here domestically. The Strait of Hormuz, whatever, it was open until Israel started this whole bombing campaign against them. Why? We don't have to join in. The deportations have worked. What he's doing here in the United States is benefiting Americans. But what's going on internationally, that's a problem. We want him to focus on the United States and America first. We want him to focus on America only. And we're eventually going to have to find a president that is going to do that. And there's got to be something we can do to make sure they never change their campaign promises, because this is not what we voted for right here. None of us.
You've said glory be to God in this conflict. Do you believe that God supports?
Riquez, Luis, that's an absolutely great statement. The philosophy of education of one generation will become the philosophy of education for the next generation. Israel will no longer be considered an ally of the United States for the next generation. So we don't have much longer to be beholden to that country. Right now, that country controls us. And I've been saying this for a few years now. People keep saying free Palestine from them. I keep saying free America. And people are like, what do you mean, Rico, free America? We're already free. And then you see the United States bombing Iran, and even our president, who loves attention and loves the microphone and camera, he can barely even give us a reason why. You know how much it must take for you to attack another country with another country? We've never done that before since, I guess, World War II. We've never had another country and we came together and just started hitting another country. Unheard of. Because in those situations, to prevent confusion and friendly fire, well, one of you have to be in charge. And obviously, it's the Israelis that are in charge of the American military. But I'm wrong when I say that the Israelis have control over our arsenal. And that was the goal the whole time. They control our arsenal. So we see this happening. We don't want it to happen anymore, but we have to go through this now so it won't be repeated in the future. So you're right. The next generation won't have to go through this, but we have to survive it first. And we have to learn from our mistakes. And people like myself or others are going to have to get online, put ourselves out there and talk about these topics. I'm invited to do some interviews. I have an interviews coming up on Friday. I have another speaking engagement on Sunday. I'm just a regular guy, not anything too different than anybody else, but I love my country. I'm not ashamed to say that. I believe we can do better, but I'll be honest with you. I'm an isolationist now. I don't want immigration. I don't want any, we don't have one job to spare. Not for one H-1B worker. We don't have one to spare for an illegal that's going to work for slave wages. Our kids need jobs. Our kids can go work on the roofs. Our kids can work in the fields. Our kids need work. We don't need slave labor, and we don't need these advanced Koreans to build batteries. Americans can be trained to build anything. We used to be able to build everything. Even if Trump doesn't believe that we can still do it, I can. See, that's what comes with America first, America only. And if we become, the more self-sufficient we become, the less likely we are to become involved in these foreign entanglements to protect our interest, because our friends' interests, man, fuck these friends. Israel already announced if there's going to be a ground invasion, they won't send one troop. But this is your war, but you're not going to send your troops with ours. But I'm supposed to respect you. I'm supposed to feel sorry for you. Never. Never. And there's not one conservative, red-blooded American that says, you know what? They started a war. They're asking us to send troops in, but they won't send their troops. That makes sense to me. There's not one. I don't care if you're black, straight, gay, none of us. Even though we don't, we see the country completely different. Nobody's going to say, yeah, that makes sense to them. They start a war. We get their back. And then they fall back when we start fighting and say, no, we're not going to send anybody. You guys send all your people. The hell we will. They can't. How can you be considered our greatest ally if you won't even send your troops in with ours for a fight that you picked? Now, NATO said they're not sending troops. The British aren't sending a soul. Neither will the French. Neither will the Spaniards, neither will the Germans. Nobody's sending anyone into Iran. Well, then why are we in NATO? Okay, that's a good question. NATO should have dissolved when the Soviet Union dissolved. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization was only formed to counter the Soviet Union. The Soviets fell in 1990. Why do you think Epstein bought that ranch in 93 and recruited all the Manhattan Project scientists? They had no more work. The nuclear threat was over. That was it. There is no need for NATO anymore. There is no more Soviet Union. So now they're just trying to find a reason to keep NATO around. I remember what was it? 15 years ago, Putin asked Bill Clinton, hey, can Russia join NATO? We want to, be in there with the framework so we can, protect each other. We're all in Europe. We're all connected by land masses. At first, they were going to let Russia join NATO. But if Russia joins NATO, who's going to be the boogeyman you're going to use to scam tax dollars out of the coffers of these countries' populations? Because you're going to need a boogeyman to say, hey, we need money for military, we need money for defense. If not, man, big bad Russia's going to come over here and just start, kicking ass and blowing up stuff and taking stuff. So they have to keep their boogeyman around. Trump was doing so good. He started something called the Board of Peace. The Russians put up $1 billion and they said, we want to join the Board of Peace with other countries. That way we can negotiate agreements and no more war. And then Israel doesn't like the sound of no more war and attack Iran. Now nobody talks about Trump's Board of Peace anymore. Even he sounds like a maniac. He sounds like Pete Hegseth is a puppet master and talking out of his mouth. And don't get me wrong, you need a Pete Hegseth. You need a man that's going to make tough decisions and not going to be emotional or weak. We had years of men dressed as women running our military, embarrassing as hell. But we had to, swing the other way now. Now we had to go far the other direction. But if the rhetoric he's feeding Trump, if that's contaminating Trump's mind and pushing him to the point of making these ridiculous decisions and these far out nonsensical threats, then we need to put a buffer in there. We got to separate these two. If this is what it's going to cause, because it's either put up or shut up tomorrow. If we wake up Friday and there's still 93 million people in Iran, then that means all their threats were empty. We're a joke, and we definitely wouldn't be able to handle China. And we don't stand a snowball's chance in hell against the Russians. Again, they have Wagner and they had Prigozhin. We have no such people here in the United States training our forces. Alan Richter's he's an actor. He's not really a Spartan. He was in War Machine, but he doesn't really do that. These are the Russians actually have real human men that are actual people who are they're basing these movies off of actual soldiers, real, no exaggeration, real people. We're not prepared to fight people like that. Our soldiers don't even have kids anymore or wives to protect. So a completely separate category of man. Big difference nowadays. Again, we can't let Trump write any more checks that our asses can't cash. We just can't do it. And you look at him, he has the pen, he's stroking away. It's all BS, but I hate all this bluffing and poker. This is ridiculous.
The United States actions in the
I do, because God is good, because God is good, and God wants to see people taken care of. God doesn't like what's happening. I don't like what's happening. Everyone says, I don't enjoy this. I don't enjoy. NATO's a paper tiger. NATO is us. And when we needed them, but we didn't need them, by the way. We didn't need them, obviously, because they haven't.
You can't say when we needed them, but we didn't need Trump. My God. That's the thing. He's not a good politician, and he's a really bad diplomat because he's just a guy. He's a business person. He's not trying to figure out how to get along with everybody. He's just, speaking from the hip. But the problem is when you start saying too much of the wrong stuff, you scare people. If we try to attack Iran tomorrow, they're going to hit Europe. Their missiles can hit the UK, France, Germany. Why do you think these other countries said, hell no, we're not? You can't launch from our bases against Iran, because then we're going to be a party to the war. Why do you think Hungary, Poland, Lithuania, all these countries that border the Ukraine, why do you think not one drone was ever sent from their air bases towards the Russians? Why do you think no attacks in the Ukraine were launched from those surrounding countries' air bases against the Russians? Because the Russians made it clear, one launch from your bases, you are now a party to the war and you're involved. We're going to hit you. The Iranians let the Americans, these GCC countries, those Gulf countries, whatever, they allowed the Americans to launch from their bases, and Iran smacked and hit them all. Bahrain, our bases. To tell you the truth, there could be 1,000, or there's probably 1,000 or more American military men dead. But they're not counting them for this war. They're being sent to other countries saying they have some kind of brain injury, but they're not reporting the dead. They don't want you to panic. That means you should panic when they're lying about that. They made it a law in Israel. You can't even talk about how many people are dead, and they're arresting people for sharing footage of the attacks and the damage the next day. Eventually, it's going to come out. So if you know this is eventually going to come out, why are you trying to stop it now? It seems like it's like they need this to go on a little bit longer, and that scares me. What are they trying to do? And I mean, it's anybody's guess. It's just as good as mine. But I'll be honest, I don't think that they know. I don't think they were planning for this. I don't think Trump knew they were going to hit back. And I thought Trump probably thought, hey, if I say ceasefire, they're going to say, please. But they said, we don't want a ceasefire. Kill us all. If you can do it, do it. I don't care anymore. You're not going to threaten us. You're not going to every couple of years come around here threatening me and sending all these messages. Just get it over with. Do what you're going to do. Do your big one. We're going to do the same. That's when you back someone into a corner. That's a dangerous person. That's a dangerous country. They're fighting for their survival. We're fighting for fun. This isn't even an existential threat to the United States. We have oceans to protect us. We don't even have Patriot missile batteries down our coastline. We couldn't stop anything if somebody came here. We wouldn't. With what? With what? Imaginary space lasers and all this imaginary stuff you think you heard that we have? We don't have it. We don't. It's all make believe. You think the Starship Enterprise is going to pull up and drop some tachyon bombs on fucking and Islamabad and Tehran? Get the hell out of here. That's all just movie magic and make believe. In the real world, you're going to have to put boots, and there's going to have to actually be men, actual men, not gay men, not confused men, not men that might want to be women or might not want to be women. You're going to need actual men that are married with children to get into your ranks who want to fight to defend them. We don't have that. We don't. That's why I'm saying all of this is nonsense. And he's right. NATO is a paper tiger. We had our teeth removed. We gave all of our teeth to the Ukraine, and the Russians destroyed the teeth. Now we don't have anything to fight with. NATO was demilitarized in the Ukraine. Like, I did videos where they were screaming, give us the leopards, give us the panthers, send all the tanks. And then you see the tanks turn to smoke to the point where they started asking the Ukrainians to don't use the tanks anymore, because when people find out how ineffective they are against the Russians, no one's going to want to buy them because they don't work. And they were starting to embarrass them. They are a paper tiger. There is no more NATO. So then they're not coming here to help you fight because there really is no threat to America. So what are they helping? So you want all of NATO to bow down to Israel as well? No.
Helped at all. Just the opposite. They've actually gone out of their way not to help. They didn't even want to give us landing strips. Think of it. And it's not just NATO. You know who else didn't help us? South Korea didn't help us. You know who else did?
I don't know. You really couldn't call me a Nazi just because, well, I'm not a socialist, but I am a nationalist. And I'll be honest, I speak German, So I would watch the speeches. I agree with, well, there's pretty much not much I disagreed with. I believe in protecting the homeland. I believe in protecting families. I believe in men working and building our society. I do believe in morality. There are a lot of things that parallel with our society. The problem is the one group that they targeted is perverting our society. It's literally their policy. And it was their policy back then. And that's why the Nazis burned all those books. We had a book burning the other day in Tennessee, and they voted 8-3 to remove the librarian that was not taking out all that disgusting, what's it called? All that literature that they were writing of transgenderism and homosexuality that they're trying to pass to your children. She's a lesbian herself. She refused to remove those books. So they voted 8-3 in a huge town hall thing to remove this woman. And they essentially took those books and burned them because that's all those books are good for. Ashes. Not good for anything else. So history is not just rhyming, it's actually repeating itself. And apparently a lot of us Americans, we agree with what happened back then. It's just that it's not necessarily a popular speech to say you agree with the book burnings. The question is, why aren't you being more specific? Tell me which books were burned. Who was the author? Was his name Magnus Hirschfeld? Were those the books that were burnt? Do you want your child being exposed to Magnus Hirschfeld type books? Do you believe your kid became a sexual being at 3 years old, like Magnus and the others? That's what the Zionists. Did you ever read any of these books? Have you been watching these student board meetings where they try to say these parents are Nazis and terrorists because they're going to the board meetings and they're just reading the books that were already in the library, like the one called Gender Queer? Did you read about it? Did you even know about all this? Again, when you're being spoon-fed information, you have to ask who's holding the spoon. See, in my situation, you can see me. You can talk to me. You don't know who's holding the spoon that's feeding your kids. You have no clue. You don't know who owns the companies that are providing the literature. Americans and parents are finally becoming more involved in fighting back. And we're burning those books. So again, history is not only rhyming, it's literally repeating. So say thank you that there are those amongst us that will sometimes embrace the insults and clear them up for you, because it actually compliments that you use it as an insult, but it's actually a compliment. And in that case, I want to tell you thank you. I appreciate it.
Didn't help us. Australia didn't help us. You know who else didn't help us? Japan.
Oh, you're in Tennessee and you didn't hear about the book burning. Okay, well then let me show you. Do you mind? We'll take a break from Trump for a second. Let's see here. The teachers. Let's see here. We'll find it. Yeah, they just voted. They voted on this and they removed those books. Actually, I did. I shared it here on TikTok, I believe. TikTok is very sensitive, so I was surprised they didn't delete it. But this is I'm glad you asked. And again, when you're removing books that are no longer allowed to be kept in your library, you're essentially throwing them in the trash, which is burning those books. So you're in Tennessee. Let's see if you know what part of Tennessee this is. Where is it? I was just watching that. I just did a story about it. Actually, mom doesn't want dad to see child. Okay, that's for April Fool's. So yeah, this was probably from a week before that. Sorry, we have a lot of stuff here on TikTok. A lot of it's comedy stuff. It's just funny stuff, but some of it's stuff that I actually want to do stories on, and I don't want to have to search for it too much. But now here I am. I didn't think I was going to be going back in these videos to find it, but for a person who's in Tennessee, I think you should be proud of your state. So that's why I'm happy to take a couple of seconds to look this up so that I can share it with you, and you should feel better about where you live, and whoever the politicians are in your state, you should be happy to support them because, well, they're pushing back against the agenda to sexualize your kids and to confuse them. So that's a net positive in my opinion. And we want to see more of that. We want to support the parents, and we want to support the staff that is preventing this from happening. Let's see here. Tennessee. We'll look it up here. Removes librarian. Here we go.
Breaking tonight, a wild scene.
Now, this is Rutherford County, Tennessee. Breaking, the Rutherford County Library. So this is March 31st, a few days ago. In Tennessee, voted 8-3 in favor of firing library director Luann James after she refused to move over 100 books, including LGBTQP and DEI books, from the children's section to the adult section. That's all they wanted her to do, was remove books that were about the, gay stuff, transgenderism, homosexuality. She insisted that they stay in the children's section, but instead of moving them to the adult section. And she lost her job because of that, and they had to vote her out. And she had supporters there. There are evil people in this country who want to sexualize your kids. You don't know it, but now you do. Subscribe to my channel. I'll keep you up to date. Like the video and you'll keep hearing about this topic. But this is in Rutherford, Tennessee, Rutherford County. And unhinged supporter of James screamed and shouted like lunatics during the meeting. They're just angry that they can't push gay groomer porn books on kids anymore. And that's exactly what they were doing, pushing gay groomer porn on children. Books that have illustrations of sex and sex acts, because it's like drawings of it, they were able to sneak it into the children's book section of your schools. Now in California, they haven't been tossed out. Those kids are cooked. But in states like Texas and Tennessee, Florida, South Dakota, there are certain places where people are going to refuse to give their pornography to their children. And we all know which group from which country creates and distributes the pornography. I'll give you a hint. It's the same group that got their books burned back in the 30s. Same group. Surprisingly, surprise, the same group almost 100 years later, and we are now having to purge those books from our children's libraries. We're burning those books still. I'll play this for you. Give it a second.
Inside the Rutherford County Library Board meeting.
The library director is now without a job. We break down what happened.
Chaos and commotion.
Now look at the woman. She's a lesbian. Like I tell people, there's a war. It's between countries that have pride parades versus countries that don't. Meaning, there is a war between people who protect kids and who actually give birth to kids and make kids versus people who cannot have kids, who are gay, who want your kid. It's a war between, it's not even about race, it's not about countries. It's about people who want kids versus people who want to protect our kids. It's it. All this other stuff is it's basically proxy wars. But it all comes down to people who they want your kids. They want them. They want them. The same way if you watch stories of wars 1,000 years ago where men fought battles over women. A man will want another man's queen and they would bring an entire army to storm a castle, and thousands of people would die over one woman. The way men are motivated to love and be with women, there are people in our society here in the United States that share that same motivation, but they're sick, and they share that same desire and attraction for children, for kids. They call themselves MAPs, minor attracted persons. They're literally trying to get their sexuality to be covered and protected by the LGBTQP. That's what the P stands for. They want it to be seen as a sexuality and not criminalized anymore. They want it to be decriminalized. The push is happening as we speak. This is us pushing back. Did you know this? Now you know this. Are you going to tell somebody? Are you going to? Now, I've been clear about how this is going. I'm able to explain this in English clear as day. Are you going to be able to explain to others what you're learning here today? You should, because just like you didn't know, maybe they don't know. There's a war going on for your kids right now. The war in Iran is for kids. The war in Russia, they want your kids. People who go to pride parades, they want your kids. So they need you to have pride parades so your kids will join them because they can't have kids. It's simple. Why do you think they're already talking about reversing gay marriage? It went from we just want to get married and love each other to we want to be able to have sex with your kids without being put on a sex offender list. That's a jump in less than 15 years. But it seems like maybe one of those decisions might have been unnecessary. It might have not. What was that for? No. We need morality laws. We have to preserve humanity. Without those, our nation's falling apart. If only some of you understood what it was like to be a man. Imagine trying to pick from a pool of women to be a wife, but they were temporarily feminist 10 years before, and they were doing porn, and they were doing escorting, and they were doing this and doing that. And imagine that's the pool you have to pick from because there's no laws to stop them. Hey, do whatever you want. But then nobody marries these women and they age out. You know what happens when she becomes 55 and there's no kids or grandkids to take care of her? They live off the government. Now they're calling for what? Communism, to take care of them in their old age. They want the government to take care of them in lieu of a husband and children. Because remember, I know when I was a kid, my grandmother came to live with us. Grandfather lived with us. Great-grandmother lived with us. She raised me. I took care of her until she passed. But these women don't have kids anymore. They never took a husband. No husband ever took them. People don't understand the consequences of this liberation. Humans were made to live a certain way. Trying to reinvent the wheel the last 20 years is the equivalent of us saying, hey, we found something that's better than water that we can use for the grass. It's called Gatorade. Yeah, electrolytes, and the television told me it's superior to water. So when I'm thirsty, I drink Gatorade, and when we need to water the grass, let's just use Gatorade. There is no replacing nature. And trying to, it doesn't work. So that's what the war is between. So I need you guys to watch these videos, share my video, like my channel, but go back and tell people what you saw here today, what you learned. You didn't know about this. But this is happening right there in Tennessee where you live. So I'm talking directly to you, Louise. I appreciate you being here. I'm going to go back and we're going to play it through without me talking about that. Because I'm long-winded sometimes, okay?
Breaking tonight, a wild scene inside the Rutherford County Library Board meeting.
The library director is now without a job. We break down what happened.
Chaos and commotion. The decision followed a tense and at times heated meeting, with board members openly clashing over policy and how library material should be classified.
Why did you totally decide what we were going to discuss tonight in terms of news? But that's not your job. As a board, you're there to lead this board, not to tell us.
At the center of it all, whether 190 books belonged in the children's section or should be moved to adult shelves. The board recently ruled the books had to be moved, but the library director refused. Supporters of the director argue libraries should protect access and leave decisions to professional staff.
And now she is refusing to comply with the board's most recent order because it violates patrons' First Amendment rights. She is so dedicated to the Constitution and the freedom to read that she's willing to lose her job over it.
That's and you know what we call that, ladies and gentlemen? That's when you call someone using your goodwill. They're using it against you. She's saying, oh, it's her First Amendment right. So now they're beating us over the head with our right of free speech to justify giving pornography to kids. Gay people are pushing to give pornography to kids. People, women with no children and no husband, no man, women with no children and no husband, with their short haircuts and their different color hair, their blue, their purple, pink hair, showing up and getting jobs throughout our education system. Women with no husbands and no children infiltrating education systems all over the country and telling us that it's their First Amendment right that your kid should be able to have access to pornography as a part of their First Amendment. Well, if you don't like it, maybe you should get rid of the First Amendment. Maybe you shouldn't have free speech. And that's how they try to simultaneously infiltrate your country, where they destroy your Constitution by using it against you. You know, I remember they were trying to use our Second Amendment to us and our support for the right to self-defense. They were trying to use that. They were using that against us when Charlie Kirk was killed. Well, Charlie Kirk said, you know, the right to bear arms of self-defense should be protected. And then he gets shot. So maybe you shouldn't want to have guns, because it's like, please shut up. Shut the hell up. The manipulation only works with weak-minded people. There's somebody in the chat right now that says, oh, you're trying to say that the gays are pedophiles. No, they're not. Yeah, we're literally watching gay politicians and Americans every single day being arrested for crimes against children. Literally. The drag queens you guys love so much, arrested for crimes against kids. It's all about kids. It's not about acceptance. Bro, I'm an adult. If there's a man who wants to dress up as a unicorn and stick his wee-wee in a toaster, I wouldn't give a shit. I don't care what you do with yourself. That's you. My issue is now you take it as a personal goal to want to talk to and influence children. I can't allow that. I can't say that's okay. So now we're enemies. That's how it goes. There's no men who are normal, regular, red-blooded men like myself that are going to say, you want to have sexual access to kids, and I'm okay with it because, you know, freedom of speech, freedom of this and this, and, you know, I should respect your sexuality. If you don't go to hell, one way or another, go to hell. Not doing that. Not compromising myself, not compromising what's right. You know, some of us have a moral compass. Some of us, there's certain things, it's just born in you. It's inherent. You know better. So I'm watching sickos justifying why your kids should have pornography in their hands by using my own First Amendment that my ancestors fought and died to protect. They're using it against us now, or they're trying to. It's not going to work. But the fact that they tried means, you don't really care about being married. This was never about marriage. This was about kids all the way from the beginning. Finding a roundabout way to get us to normalize pedophilia. Where it's actually not even pedophilia no more. It's just, I'm just a person attracted to minors, or minor attracted persons. That's all in that. So now it's not, and you think that you can get into the comments and anyone's going to buy and believe that. It's not happening. Didn't happen in Tennessee. This is us burning those books. Burnt to a crisp. put those books in an air fryer. We'll use them to heat our homes in the winter. Those books have no business in the hands of children. They never did. But for a few years under Biden, a few years under the Democrats, people, they poked their heads out. The pervs felt protected by Biden. They felt emboldened by Kamala. And now we're burning their books. We're putting them back into wherever they came from. We're not allowing it. Let's finish the rest of this video, shall we?
While others say the issue is about what is appropriate for younger readers.
The law was made to protect the most vulnerable, which is children. Follow the law. Protect the children. Hold the line.
In the end, the board sided with the removal of library.
Look at her. Short hair, no ring on her finger, no children. Let me ask you guys this. If you know she's a pedophile and she's part of that community, would you still consider her an American? I'll be honest, I'm on the fence. I think that certain people with their beliefs are anti-American because they're anti-human. They go against what we stand for, and that's illegal. So when people commit crimes against children, they're criminals. Criminals have their rights removed from them and they're locked in prison. Are prisoners American? They can't vote. They're removed from society. So in my opinion, I'll be honest, some people don't want to live within the framework of our laws and our society. So what do you do with them? You just throw them in prison forever? She might like prison. Women everywhere. A 24/7 Sex in the City. Okay, like, is that really even a punishment? These are people that wanted to hurt your kids. Do you guys ever look at the shows or the documentaries on kids who are abused or hurt or sexualized when they're young and groomed? Do you see the path they end on? Do you see how they end up and the things that happen to them in the future? Exposing kids to all this sex stuff too young, do you know what it does to them? Confusing them about their sexuality, about their gender. Do you know what age they start self-deleting when they realize, especially for boys? See, when you're a girl, you can kind of live with certain things, but when you're a boy and you eventually become a man, but you were manipulated as a child into thinking that you were on the other side, and there's certain things you have to live with, and these boys have nightmares and they can't sleep, and they want to have a family and children, but there's all this shame and guilt from the things that did happen to them in their past. A lot of them they call them survivors of the Catholic Church and in the Boy Scouts. There was a lot of scandals, and we see the trajectory, and a lot of these boys can't live with themselves after. That's why I tell people that whole agenda is the depopulation agenda. It gets you to depopulate yourself because you can't live with yourself. The guilt, the shame. I have no respect or I have no love for these people. I don't see them, these people that harm kids. I see them. That's how low. And they know what they're doing. That's why bring the drag queens into your kids' preschool, and they don't want your kids to tell their parents what they did at school today. And they pass these laws where, now you can have conversations with the kids and they don't have to disclose to the parents what secret conversations these teachers are talking to them about. And then the counselors are also from the same community she's from. The counselors are covering for the teacher. And then the principal has colored short hair and she's covering for the counselor and the principal. And everyone's just keeping a secret. And you don't even know that something happened to your daughter 3 weeks ago in a locker room with a boy dressed as a girl. I think that also happened in Tennessee as well, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm just making all this up when there's literally case studies and news stories every single day. And you think Iran is in a hurry to have to deal with these problems too, on top of whatever issues they already have? a degrading society being influenced by Mossad and the West. You want to compound these issues on top of those that they already have to deal with on a daily basis. And you think they're in a hurry to open up their society so they can deal with the degrading, horrible parts of our society that embarrass us as Americans to admit that we have to deal with? Most people thought we already dealt with all these. We didn't. It's out of control. We literally have to have a board meeting just to fire a sicko. But they're in a hurry to be like us, right? Our society is superior. No, we're trying to make our society superior. We have work to do. But this is the work right here. You're watching the work. So we appreciate the people of Tennessee, and we're going to have more states that are going to follow suit.
Library Director Luann James, though she stood by her words tonight when given a chance to speak. Now the director is out. The future of those books remains unclear, and this debate over access policy and control is far from over. I'll send it back to you two.
So again, no, I didn't mean to make it a big deal, but like there's stories like this happening all over the country. These are victories that are happening, but it's on a local level. Right now, I'm trying to decide. I'll be honest with you, the presidency is not as important as who's over your local school board, who's your local mayor, who's your governor. Like there's local things that are far more important than who the president is. You're going to have to live in your city. You're going to have to live in your town. Your kids are going to have to go to the school. You're going to need to be able to individually control what they're exposed to until they're old enough to have enough discernment to figure it out for themselves. We cannot let our kids be sacrificed to sickos because we want to be inclusive. How inclusive do you want to be? How far will you go? How much virtue signaling will you do to show these people that you respect their decision? Will you sacrifice your child to them? If the answer is no, then we can be friends. But if you're willing to sacrifice your kids to them, then the talking stage for us is over. And I draw the line there. That's where my lines are drawn. And depending on where you are in this chat, you're going to be on one side of that line or the other. That's why I said all these wars, everything we're dealing with in society, it comes down to this one line right here. There's a whole thing called gays against groomers because there's a section of gays that are the minority that understand their entire basis is all about grooming kids into their ranks. That's what all these wars are about. That's what all this is about. So you're going to have to pick a side. I picked my side. Publicly picked a side. Some people will join me. Some people will not. It's up to them. Somebody brought up something about African Americans. I think what they, let me see if I can go back in the chat. Thank you. There are people who are now watching this. Why did you African Americans allow the LGBTQ people to pretend that their cause is the same as the African American cause when it's not the same cause in two different causes? Sinosi Ba, you are 100,000% correct. The only thing you're wrong about is that I am not African American. Because I'm African American, but I can pass, I'm able to sit amongst them and listen. To be black is to be gay now. To be trans is to be black. The entire gay movement is now tethered to the black community. The black community is subservient to that community. So there is no more black community. It is merged with the gay community. And to be honest, from the angle that I could see, the gay community was smarter than the black community. Historically, they're a lot smaller people and they're weaker physically. However, black people are typically larger and stronger and can fight. What they did, if you notice, when you meet someone who's gay, if they're white, they're really anti-white. If you talk to them, they hate straight white people. So they talk about them as if they're not white themselves. And it's curious to everybody who's listening And it's so weird because that's why we don't say anything. We just listen like, aren't you white too? Like, you really say a lot of evil, hateful things about white people. It's because they're not talking to you. They're talking to blacks. And black people think that, oh, wow, on our crusade against white people and to destroy white people and remove white supremacy, there are allies. There are literally black groups of people who will literally align with pedophiles, rapists, anybody, as long as you say you're going to help them in their fight against white people, because they feel this inherent desire for revenge for a slavery that they never personally experienced, and they can't even verify if it ever happened. But that's what generational conditioning and brainwashing will do to you. So that's how that slope happened. And that's why when you meet someone who's a part of that LGBT, whatever community, they are extremely evil against anybody who's white, especially if you have a family. That's why they hated Charlie Kirk. That's why they hate Trump. That's why they hate any white men in general, period. Unless they're gay, they don't like them at all. Because you have to keep your security detail, your attack dogs, you have to play into their inferiority complex and their delusions of evil white people trying to attack them, even though 100% of the people they've ever met in their life that died prematurely were at the hands of another black person. They still have this unusual and unsubstantiated fear of white people that they've never met, that's never hurt or did anything to them. But again, generations of systematic brainwashing from their own people. Society and white people didn't teach them to have these thoughts and these mannerisms, behavior. Their parents and their grandparents reinforced that mentality into their head. Most of them have never even met a white person in their life that wasn't a teacher. Only time they've ever seen a white person was probably on the freeway driving. They don't live in their neighborhoods. So they never had a bad experience with a white person in their life, but they have this weird fear, even though everyone around them is dying at the hands of black gang violence every single night in these inner cities. So that's how it happened. Glad we could have that talk and clear that up. Let me go back down to some of these other. So that was a great question, by the way. And me, being that I'm Latino, I'm able to see everything from both sides, and I actually had to source it because I had friends that would say all these crazy things about white people, and I'm like, where the hell did you get that from? And then you meet their mom. There's no dad. You meet their grandmother, their aunt, and every one of them, every time. Never even met a white person. All they do is just sit there and just talk about white people. It's like this. It's the craziest thing in the world. That's why I said you have to actually meet them, and you have to actually be able to sit around them where they're just comfortable talking. And you'll listen. You'll be like, this is insane. I have to keep my kids a million miles away from them. So if that means I have to work 5 jobs just so I can afford to not live in the inner city or around them, and that's how you have suburbs and upper class areas far away from their influences. And that's why we have those. That's why they're necessary. They'll spread this discontent for white people, but it's also a discontent that they spread about the country, the Constitution, America in general, but they won't leave. They won't repatriate themselves to Ghana or to Nigeria, where there are no white people to worry about. Just people that look like you. You can be happy and flourish there. You won't have to worry about law. You don't got to worry about law enforcement. There's no ICE. There's no Trump. But they find every excuse to, well, no, I mean, I hate this place, but I'm going to stay. Like, what? Why not escape? I mean, if this country is really fascist, like last time I checked, fascist countries didn't have airports. Yeah, you're not allowed to leave fascism. You know, the people that live in the Gaza Strip, they can't leave and nobody can go in there. But America's open society. How are you both? You can't be both. You can't be fascist, but open. You're trapped. You're not trapped here. You can escape tomorrow. You can escape tonight. There's international flights leaving at 6 a.m. Start a GoFundMe, get your family and escape to Kenya, Zimbabwe, Madagascar, anywhere but here. Drop your American citizenship. You don't have to worry about ever seeing a white soul again, but you won't. And that's why we have a war. That's why we have people here we're fighting. So, but think about it. Even they will literally go along with pressing and giving pornography to kids, their own kids, if it meant that they were going to have another ally to help them fight in this imaginary war against white people. In their heads, they are fighting a war against white individuals and white society. In their mind, like but you have to talk to them. Yeah, you might know them, but you never had a conversation with them, because at any point in time, if you're not black, they can lean on victimhood and make you out to be the bad person. Me, because I blend in, the conversation is just going to stay where neither one of us can out victimize the other. And then you eventually get to the core of it. And you're not going to like what you find. So I shared it with you. Now you know the secrets. Now you know all the black secrets. Congratulations. I mean, it's all low IQ BS, but at least you know. The Nazis were not anti-black. There were no blacks. And so I don't know why you would keep bringing that up. And also, the Nazis are not as bad as the Zionists. Calling somebody a Nazi nowadays is a compliment. Calling someone a Zionist is the insult. So you're really just complimenting me every time you say that. And just like the other ones from your background, you won't leave. Just like you won't leave and go to Nigeria, you won't leave my chat and go to a chat for BET or Roland Martin or Jesse, I don't know, whoever famous political black person that's going to tell you how much of a victim you are and how evil white people are. You can literally go and join one of those chats. Y'all can, circle jerk, pat each other on the backs. It's just not here. But the same way you won't leave and go to Ghana, you won't leave this chat, but you're upset about everything I'm saying. Not because I'm lying, but because I'm true. Because I'm telling the truth. And the reason I'm not lying is because I'm literally explaining to you like my rationale, the beginning, the middle, the end, how I got to these points. I'm answering all your questions. Like you could say thank you. You don't have to resent me. But if you want to stay in America and you want to stay in my chat, you can do so. But don't make it seem like you don't like it. I know if I went to somebody's somebody's doing a video on YouTube right now and it was a man wearing lipstick with his nails done and he's in there saying the opposite of what I'm saying, I would literally just leave because gross. I don't want to see that. I don't agree with that. Why am I here? However, you should be able to treat me with that same discontent, right? And you would leave, but you're not, because there's a little piece of you on the inside that's resonating with the truth that I'm saying. So my word that you're hearing over your speakers, it's resonating with a piece of the truth that's in your heart. And you might think one thing, but there's something that's keeping you here, Maddie. You've been here for a while. And it's not like you're winning any arguments or anything in the chat. It's like you want me to hug you, and I'm hugging you with my words. I mean, I want you to snap out of it. I just don't think you can, but I wish you could. It's a different world when you stop thinking that you're a victim and you're less than. If you can conquer that inferiority complex, even your cereal will taste better in the morning when you eat tomorrow once you wake up. And I wish that for any of you guys. I wish the best for the black community, but that's not how it works. There's no genie that's going to grant wishes. MLK destroyed you guys. He was also a communist. Told you to depend on the state to solve your problems and stop being so independent and stop being Republican and let the state, because the state owes you. The state owes you. MLK is who taught you guys that. MLK destroyed you for generations. And your grandparents perpetuated it, and they gave it to you. They ruined you. That's why there's so many issues with you guys integrating with society. You can't. That's why all of society is trying to figure out how to legally prevent you guys from following them when they run away from these cities. I know it because I'm society. And we need laws to keep you guys where you are, because if you follow us, well, then that defeats the purpose of us leaving our prime real estate homes in these inner cities close to the airports. We have to move far as hell away because, well, you guys are there. You're dangerous. I don't know. Somebody stop me. If I'm wrong, if nobody understands what I'm saying, if I'm incorrect, please stop me. Tell me in the chat. Tell me where I'm wrong. Tell me I'm just making this all up. Figment in my imagination. Please, anybody. And listen, if the what they say to OJ, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit, right? So if the shoe doesn't fit, why are you forcing it on? Like if it don't apply, let it fly. Like if this doesn't apply to you, then why are you taking it personal? I don't know you. I mean, listen, if nobody listen, it's crazy. I wouldn't have an audience if what I was saying was that wrong, because nobody would want to hear a bunch of nonsense. But there is sense here, which is why people listen, why we're having these conversations. Like I wouldn't waste my time talking to somebody who was just saying a bunch of nonsense. And the problem is, even admitting that you understand what I'm saying is something that, depending on your racial background, could have been a death sentence 5 years ago. They're going to call you a racist. They're going to call you this. They're going to call you that, just because you're being honest about your brain picked up a behavioral pattern amongst groups. And now you're being crucified for noticing. So be it. It's getting kind of cold out here. Crucify me. It's a little warm. Go ahead and burn me at the stake. What is it? The Salem witch trials? You want me to just say what you want to hear? This is the speech that needs protecting. The speech that somebody who's gay or black is going to call abhorrent. This is what needs to be protected, not the speech that everybody wants to hear. If I got on here and said, oh man, gays and blacks have historically been discriminated against, they're victims because everybody else is evil, and just making up stuff about them. There's no pattern. There's nothing. They're not criminals. There's not hurting kids. They're just the best of the best. And we're just making up stuff because of their physical attributes. Sure. If that's what you want to believe, you go for it. But you're going to be on that island alone. We're not, nobody else is buying it. We're just not. So now this is the thing. Back to the topic at hand, which was Trump losing his goddamn mind. There are other people who have noticed, and that is someone like myself, like Alex Jones. Now, Alex Jones, I'll be honest, is he's like the main person that introduced me to Trump. The same way Alex Jones introduced me to David Icke. And when the scamdemic began, David Icke went on a show called London Real, and he explained to us what the PCR test was and how there was no virus, and that they were just giving you false readings from a test created by a man named Kerry Mullis, who was saying that that's not what the test should be used for. And magically, he was killed 6 months before the scamdemic began. So he died in 2019? Out the blue. I trust people like Jones until you find out he's being paid to slander people like Candace Owens. Then now you have to be picky about what parts of him you listen to. However, he was a major Trump fan, like myself, America first. And, we both lived in Austin, but he's also noticing that Trump is going off the deep end with these nonsensical threats. And it's really going to be hard to dial back, because we're in a global community. Even though I'm an isolationist, we're still a country, and the world's a lot smaller than it used to be. Just because we don't want to import everybody to the United States, it doesn't mean we don't want to at least get along with others. And this is going to make it really hard for people to trust the United States, because, now our poor decisions are affecting the world. So listen, Jones, I didn't get to see this video. I just know he made it. So I just wanted to play it for you guys. And, I think he's going to be able to reinforce some of the things that I've noticed and have been saying. Let's see here.
Humanity coming together, one of love. So my Easter message to everyone in America and across the world is one of humanity coming together, one of loving God, one of thanking God for sending his only begotten son, Jesus Christ, to redeem us and pay for our sins, and that Jesus is king and that Jesus is risen. And I saw Trump's Easter message to Iran about, open the strait, you crazy bastards, or I'm blowing up your bridges and power plants today, which they did. and then using that, F word, and then talking about Allah, praise Allah, Allah's great or whatever. Number one, just from a psychological perspective, when Trump killed the mullah, which Israel told him to do, they said that would make him give up. That's the opposite of making him give up. And blowing up their bridges and power plants, it just hurts the citizens, just unified them. So just from a military perspective, it's horrible win the hearts and minds. Our military did act like this in the past with their rhetoric. And it's super bad news. And this is not the old Trump. It's one thing if he says fuck on the campaign trail or whatever. I do that too. But on Easter, with messages about Allah Akbar and give up, you crazy effers, they're not going to. And they've closed the strait. It's killing the economy. America is sinking in global rankings of likability. It's just not what we voted for. And we've never seen rhetoric out of presidents like this when we go to war, even if you're for this war. This is really bad PR, folks. This is what I'm talking about, the way Trump's behaving. Way more erratic. His speech, is not coherent all the time. You can't deny this is happening. So yesterday I gave you the good news that he didn't fire Tulsi Gabbard and that he's looking to put Ed Martin in. That doesn't mean I back what Trump's doing. I'm trying to salvage something and before the midterms and just, hope that we can get Trump to pull out of this war. So I'm trying
to. Jones is absolutely correct. For those of us who watched Trump handpick his administration initially, to watch him turn on the biggest Trump supporters who we morally agree with and fundamentally they are on the right tracks in their community, what they believe in, the policies they push. We have now watched Trump turn against them because they won't go along with him with his bullshit of Israel. It's all the people he hates the most are those who are saying, hey, we have to decouple ourselves from Israel. They're not saying anything else. They're just saying this country has a disproportionate influence over our politics, our policies, and our arsenal. We need to decouple ourselves and kind of just let those things be controlled solely by Americans, not by Kushner, not by these other Congress people that have Israeli passports and dual citizens. But they have to remain in the hands of Americans. Magically, Trump literally turned against the people in his administration that literally helped get him there, his allies that brought there. Because remember, when Trump was running, so was Tulsi Gabbard, so was RFK Jr. These were all people that were running for president. They all had their own separate following. The reason he was able to bring all their following together is because he brought them on into his administration. We're barely over a year in, and now here he is trying to can the people that brought over voters for him. Why? Because of Israel? Because you want access to the looking glass bullshit? I mean, it's not bullshit, but is it that important that you'll stab your own Americans in the back? I mean, and then what if it's not the greater good? What if they told him that they saw something about his own mortality and this is going to be the way to avoid it? And instead of doing what's best for America, he's just trying to save his own ass. I mean, think about it. When you live to be as old as him, a lot of those people, they're scared to death. They've been on earth for too long. All they know how to do is live. And they're trying to save themselves because I can't make any other excuses for all the strange things Trump's doing. And Alex Jones is right. His suits are not even fitting him anymore. He's belligerent. It sounds like when he's talking, he's like not the same guy. What can have him this flustered? A man who's very calculated, funny, great with crowds. He would do speeches that would last hours. And now he's like stumbling through these press conferences. He's contradicting himself because it's like he's making this up on the fly. Like it's not even him. He's basically saying what someone else wants him to say. Is that what you want in a president? Do you want a person who can speak for themselves, or do you want someone that's controlled? We couldn't stand Biden. He never did interviews, and he wasn't the one making the policies. He had no idea what was going on at all. Kamala, we didn't see her for like 3 years. Have no idea what she was doing in the meantime. Pushing abortion and pushing vaccines, magical vaccines that gave you all cancer. And you guys still think that's a better choice than Trump because you're suicidal. You need help. But I appreciate the fact that Alex Jones has to admit this. It's not easy for me to admit this. I have a following. I have people in my personal circle that I was able to talk to about Trump. But it wasn't hard to sell Trump, because when I asked them why they want to vote for Kamala, and they said because I think she's black. That anybody that's slow or their IQ is that low, it doesn't really take much to impress them. I could have just literally bought them went to a toy store, bought them a toy monkey that, has the symbols, and it's like it dances, and then put Trump on it. They would and they would have voted for Trump because of that. Simple people, very simple. But for those of us who actually have to think and process data, it's not that simple. And now we have to think about the consequences of our decision. Don't get me wrong, it's still a net positive. It's better than it would have been under Kamala. But Jesus Christ. But I'll be honest with you, I'd rather us be in a conflict with Iran, because Kamala would add us in a conflict directly with the Russians. And that we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. So be honest, this is still a net positive, but in my opinion, we can still do better, and we will do better. But we just have to get Trump back on board, or I don't know. We can't really replace him. We got 3 more years of this, but we can't survive another 3 years. They're saying the 25th Amendment because it seems like his mental capacity is changing, but it's not that. He's being controlled by the country that's been controlling our country for years. We invaded Afghanistan for Israel. We invaded Iraq for Israel. We invaded Syria for Israel. We invaded Libya. We killed Gaddafi for Israel. So he's not behaving any different than these other people, but Jesus, at least with Trump, there's a chance we can get him to course correct. There is a possibility, but not if he's going to war with those in this administration that made us support him, that talked to us about him. Even they're shocked. Marjorie Taylor Greene, my all-time favorite politician ever, MTG. Massey's number 2. And I was a really big Ron Paul fan and Rand Paul, but they let you down. I mean, Bernie let us all down. And then these politicians are just like, they're actors. It's going to come down to actual Americans who don't want the jobs to do the jobs. Like, I could never imagine leaving my life in the private sector and getting into politics. That just seems like it would be hell. But I'd rather somebody who doesn't want the job have the job than somebody who's going out for the job because, well, why do they want the job so bad? Why are you spending millions of dollars to get a job that only pays $300,000 a year? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Obviously, there's other kickbacks or other incentives, Money shouldn't even be in politics, because now, look, that's how you get war. Let's see what else. But Alex is making some good points, in my opinion.
Get as much public awakening to this and pressure as I can, but I don't have a lot of hope. But MTG had a great post about it, and I posted her comment and Trump's post below this, but this is not a Christ-like Easter message. And I'm just really worried about Trump, President Trump. It's whether you voted for him or whether you...
I'll be honest, I don't remember Trump paying any discrimination, anything, but you guys think everyone's discriminating against you. You guys think that police arresting you for shoplifting and murder is racism and discrimination. I can't take you seriously. None of you people. You guys are in my comments. All you're talking about is black, black, black. I don't want to hear that shit. I don't care. I made my decision based on the data, and I've made a discerned decision. I don't even want black coffee. Definitely don't want any black shit in politics, because it all goes down to DEI, communist, Marxist BS. Everything you do is based on color, not on character, not on policy, not on what's best for the greater good or for anything progressive or anything that's even positive. It's only based on superficial things like color. And that's all you boil down to. That's all you can talk about in the thread. That's it. You're just so self-absorbed. All you talk about is just, I don't have any idea what all that stuff. I don't care about it. It doesn't apply to anything in the real world. Only in your own private little universe you guys live in, those little communist, communes you guys live in your areas. That's the only place that stuff really matters. In the real world, none of that stuff matters. But we've noticed the pattern, so I ignore you. So I can't really So you guys can talk about that in the chat. I really can't even, there's really not much more to say. It's not going to change the needle anywhere. You guys think everything is discrimination. You think everything is racist. Matter of fact, I asked 100 black people one time. I said, name one person who's not black that you don't think is racist. Matter of fact, name a country that you don't think is racist. Name something that you don't think is racist. They couldn't name anything. There was always somebody black who thinks everything and anything is racist. There's nobody who you don't think is racist. There's nothing that you don't think is racist. There's no place on earth that you don't think is racist. So because of that, we have to just ignore you. Your battle is circular. There is no end to it. It's a mental, it's like a self-repeating delusion. And the rest of us can't live there with you. You know, I have expenses. I have work to do. I can't live in your delusion with you. And I wish I could waste a lot of time talking to you about it, but instead we have actual topics to talk about, like trying to figure out what we can do to stop Trump from taking us any further into this war.
We didn't vote for him on the 11 or hating. The world's in a major crisis. And I keep seeing people comment and say, oh, show me your facts that increased oil prices and lack of fertilizer increases inflation. It's baked into all the equations why the Federal Reserve are raising interest rates, which Trump's been fighting, and he should be. They're going to raise them. We were on the edge of bankruptcy, folks. We needed his plan to succeed. That's why I backed him so much. This derails that whole thing. That's why he's behind the scenes wanting to end the war, wanting to offer him, trying to act strong and tough up front for everybody. It's just not working. So this is a clown show, folks, and I'm really worried. I'm really, really worried about this. And we've got all never Trumpers, the Mark Levins that screw Trump, they hate Trump. You know, they're now driving the train, and it's just a disaster. This is not what Trump ran on. It's not what we voted for, and it's really scary.
I mean, listen, no matter what too many people thinking he can do wrong or not, that doesn't matter. He's already in office. Your opinion of him doesn't matter. What we're trying to figure out is who can we put in position around him that can force him to course correct. We can't just give up. That's not how this works. You know, I have a country to live in. I live here. This is my home. I wish I could remain here full time. If things get too bad, luckily for me, I can go. I have another country to go to. You don't. So it's in your best interest to not let this collapse. Some of you guys want this to collapse because you're already at the bottom, and your jealousy of envy of people who have more than you is so strong that if they lose everything and can get to the bottom with you, well, then maybe they might not look down on you. And again, that comes from a very strong inferiority complex. And so you're hoping things fall. You're hoping they lose everything. I hope we don't. So that's why I'm trying to see what can we do, what measures can we take. First things first, you can't solve a problem that you're afraid to admit that you even have. This is an intervention for all of us. Again, these videos, you know, I'm live right now. Thousands of people are going to be watching this. This is like, you know, I get to see the analytics. I'm on 8 different platforms right now. You might only see people from your platform, but you don't see the rest of the comments and the rest of the people. But we are going to have to get away from these machines and go talk to the people around us and have these conversations. We have to have these conversations. This is step one. Not talking about it, going on with your day, pretending nothing is happening, that doesn't help. I tried that back in 2020. And then one day I tried to go to my favorite bar with my girlfriend, and they closed the door in front of me and they never reopened for 3.5 years. And I was completely unprepared for the scamdemic. I wasn't paying attention and I was caught with my pants down. But I got lucky. I was in a position to benefit highly from the scamdemic, unlike many others. I had the option to escape California when many people could not. I didn't have to do the vaccine passports. I didn't have to do the testing to go places. I didn't have to do any of that. I could afford to move to Arizona. And then when Arizona locked down, I moved to Vegas and lived at a casino. And when the casino started to get on my nerves about not wearing a mask when I wanted to gamble, I discovered a magical place called Houston in a land called Texas, where there were no lockdowns and no mandates, and they never even heard of any of the nonsense we were doing in California. I got lucky. A lot of people didn't. And a lot of my friends who couldn't leave California, they complied and they passed away already. I've lost so many. So I can talk to people about it. I'm experienced. I'm actually a lead researcher. The next video I'm doing is going to be explaining the correlation besides behind them wanting to block out the sun with those mirrors and the vaccine. The way I've correlated the vaccine with people passing away from excitement. It's a war weapon. I've been, I've been studying this, and I bring my research to the people, and people can confirm it for themselves. That's the best part about it. But again, the way you can be prepared for what's coming is by talking about it and having these conversations that a lot of people just give up and don't do. I sit on the internet and I watch people and I try to watch their videos. There's very few that are doing long form content like this, engaging with the audience, talking to people. They don't want to do it. But you guys think I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for me. I want to talk to you. It's hard to meet people in the real world that can have these conversations in person. People are scared to talk. They're afraid of not looking smart or saying something dumb because a lot of people aren't versed. They're not prepared for conversations that are complex. Most people are very surface, very limited. There's not very much depth to them. They're simple people. We're villagers. So when I'm looking to have advanced conversations about geopolitics or anything like this, this is where you find your community. This is where your followers come from and people who subscribe to your channel. They listen to your words. They want to hear more. And then you guys speak and talk to each other. This is how you build community. Even those who are disagreeing with me, I'm glad you're here. You have a counter argument. But if it was that far off, you wouldn't be here at all. Because it's not like you're swaying anybody. The best thing for you to do would be present an argument, and then we would discuss it, and you would tell me your points, I tell you mine, and then it's up to the listeners, the viewers, up to the other people in the audience to decide whose side they're on or who they agree with. I'm not going to tell everybody, hey, if you notice, I'm not just blocking you guys. I'm not. Now, there are some who they'll like copy and paste and do a bunch of weird BS. Yeah, you're going to get blocked. You're not contributing to the conversation. You're more so just trying to manipulate or finesse people mentally. But it's not really going to work on people who are like myself. And I'm looking for people of like mind. This is how we create. I don't know if you guys have ever been a part of a think tank, but this is how you filter people out to join a think tank. And in a think tank, you guys can bring up certain topics and scenarios and brainstorm on what to do when they come up. That's what societies need. And there's going to be a need for think tanks in the future. This is where they start. Conversations like this one. We're all from different backgrounds. We all can look at the same thing and see it a little bit different, but we can all agree. Well, for the most part, some of us can agree that at least we're still Americans. And that's what I'm looking for. Americans, people who are America first, because we live here in America. And you should be pro wherever you're at, or wherever you should live, wherever you want to be pro. So there's going to be people that are going to say, oh yeah, this country is not that great. This other country is great. Okay. Why aren't you living there? I don't want to hear your excuses. I want to see action. Now, I didn't always live in the United States. I've lived in 7 other countries in my life. I was not always pro-America, America first. I wasn't always pro-Trump, but I see the difference. I saw the difference how they handled my friends and family members in other countries versus how we were handled here in the United States during the lockdown and the scamdemic. And then that's when I learned the hard way that this is the best country on earth. And why the globalists want to destroy us, and because we're the only thing standing in the way of their one world government, depopulation plan, whatever. Those first 2 amendments are a mug. No one else has them. No one else has these first 2 amendments. These first 2 amendments are power. You can change whole worlds with words and weapons. Change the whole world. So I'm here. And this is our think tank. This is where we come and we talk and we congregate. We have these long form conversations. We can go back and rewind the video. We can read the comments and we can see how we got where we are. If the pandemic never happened, do you think you would have came to that conclusion? No. Now, I'm too self-absorbed. I live in my own world, my own bubble. I'm a certain level of success. I kind of do whatever I want, whenever I want. I never thought there could be an outside force that could be strong enough to lock me somewhere and force me to do something that against my will. And then I saw it happen. I have friends in Australia that we still can't find anymore that were taken away to camps and removed from their homes and buildings that were quarantined back in 2020 and 2021. My friends in Melbourne can't reach their families to this day, but they're on an island, trapped, stuck. Not even just like the UK, but like Australia is an actual monster island. I've seen a lot during the lockdowns, and I was able to compare it to the United States. I mean, once upon a time, like I lived in Germany for a long time. I lived in France, and I would tell people when I'm there, like, America's not the greatest country on earth. We all have freedom of speech. Yeah, we don't have guns over here, but I can do what I want. I can get on a train. I can go to another country. I can, go get food. I can go party. And I'm thinking that's what freedom really is. That's not what freedom is. Freedom is being able to decide how much you're going to work and then how much in your taxes you got to give away versus the government in a communist society just taking 80-90% of your income and giving it to socialist programs to fund housing for illegals and give them stipends. Why do you think you think nobody else on earth has bright ideas for tech companies or businesses? Why do you think everybody's opening everything here in the United States? It's not that we're just the only people with brains. It's just that we're the only country that makes it possible, and we promote innovation. We don't stifle it by putting all these taxes and just draining all the money from people to cover socialist programs. When I lived in Europe, you can make $1 million a year, but you're going to be taxed 80-90%. So you're leaving with 130. So some people are like, well, what's the point of me even making all this money? I'm about to give it away. So what they do is they take their show on the road and they move to a country like the United States and they apply for a visa and they open up businesses here so they can have access to more of what they generate. Because that's another thing that comes with freedom is responsibility. If you're going to be responsible for yourself and your own family, you need to be able to determine where your income goes and how much you're going to work and how much you're going to earn and what you're going to do with it. In other countries, they decide what you can do with it. They stifle innovation. The United States doesn't. That makes this a whole new ball game. Obviously, freedom of speech and, the fact that you can be armed. I've been to places where they were like, oh, you got to wear a mask. And I was like, well, this assault, this rifle and this 9mm said I don't got to wear shit. And I'm not wearing it. And they were like, you know what? You don't got to wear it. That's the difference. I just couldn't imagine living in a country where I'm defenseless and the only people that have weapons is law enforcement, police. So I'm basically at the mercy of the government every single day. And I seen what happened when these other countries turned their governments against the people. I watched it. I watched it when Dan Andrews put the boot on the people of Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, Gold Coast. I remember watching it. Force them to, where if you even talk to another Australian in a store during a lockdown, they'll arrest you. I remember watching the videos of women with their children talking on the internet about how this doesn't make sense, staying in the house when it's the middle of the summer. I can't even go to the beach. And then they're getting a knock on their door. Police arresting them, pulling their children from them, attacking them. I was there. I seen it. I watched all this stuff. I reported on it. I talked about it on social media. They wiped my accounts. They kicked me off of YouTube, kicked me off of Facebook. 12 years of videos and family stuff. And then all of a sudden 2020 hit. I started getting all these 30-day restrictions on Facebook. I shared the Hunter. I got my account back one time. shared the Hunter Biden laptop story, didn't put a caption, nothing. Just shared it from the New York Post. And they nuked my account permanently from orbit. I still haven't got my account back yet, even though they came out and said it actually wasn't Russian disinformation. Well, 50 intelligence officers said that it was all fake. And all 50 of them lied, and all 50 of them had to be held accountable. They were held accountable for it, which is beautiful. But I still never got my account back, never got my Instagram accounts back. Had to literally rebuild 4 or 5 different times. Now I'm surprised they let me sit on here and have these conversations at all. But if they'll let Jackson Hinkle, and he's an interesting guy. I mean, I think his content's great. He's just on the opposite side of the spectrum when it comes to the United States. But we're noticing some of our points are paralleling. Our own president is literally torpedoing all the progress he made in his own first year. And then we're also paralleling as far as, well, Iran has won this war. They're not just winning, they've decisively won. When you can fight 13 countries at once, you won. You've won. You won. They haven't hit us in the U.S. mainland, God forbid, but they hit all of our installations and our satellites. And if we start launching attacks against them from European countries, those countries will be hit. They have nothing to lose. You're already talking about exterminating them. It can't get any worse. Oh, if you don't do this, you're gonna be living in hell. You're already bombing us. You can't bomb us anymore. You can't just, we're gonna do bomb us again. Keep bombing. We're already bombed. Bomb. How much work? What do you think you're gonna do? There is no nukes. You can't drop one. And if you did, it's just another bomb. We're still gonna be alive. We're still gonna have our population. We'll be able to rebuild. So it's not like these are threats that are even worth anything anymore. We're already in a fight for our survival as is. We can't overly fight for survival. We're already fighting to survive. That's it. That's the max you can go. There's nowhere else. So, but yeah, no, but I'm glad you asked that question. And the honest answer is, because of my own hubris, no. If it wasn't for the scamdemic, I would have just kept believing the United States was equal to these other nations instead of superior. I didn't really trust. I didn't think the Constitution was special. I didn't really care enough about it. Again, not only was I protected by these 2 oceans, I'm also way in California, living in a bubble, and not realizing the kind of world, what's really going on in the world and what really matters, which is why I wouldn't live in California anymore. I can't. I've gone too far. I know too much. I can't go back to agreeing with California. Let's see here. But I don't think arms will change the average person, and mass will not go against the government with weapons. No, we don't. No. That's not how it works in the real world. In the real world, you don't attack governments with weapons. You find another government that you agree with and you relocate. That's how it works. There's like those people in Iran, they had to be, they were executed, but it was mandatory. You guys are trying to overthrow the government instead of just applying for visas and saying, hey, I want to go be gay in San Francisco. But instead, you're insisting on being gay in Tehran. So you want to overthrow your government so that you can take your tops off, boobs out, kiss other women and kiss other men, men kissing men, and you guys want to have sexual liberation in Tehran. That's not going to happen. So you should have just figured out a way to leave the country. You don't take weapons and go try to fight your government. You just choose another government to support. That's the beauty of living in the modern world. You're not stuck here. You're not stuck here. If the United States goes too far left, I remember when Kamala Harris and Joe Biden was in office, I did not live in the United States. I moved to another country. I came back in the end of September because I started to realize that Trump was going to win by a long shot, because I had been listening to liars on television talking about Kamala. But then I kept asking people like, okay, cool, you're on the Kamala train for sure. So what is she offering you? And nobody could tell me what she was offering. I'm like, what do you mean you can't tell me why you're supporting her? That scares me. Grown adults could not explain to me why they Kamala. That scared the hell out of me. But when I ask someone who's voting for Trump, well, fiscally, it'd be better for this. He's removing he's going to enforce immigration laws that are already on the books. That's going to do good for crime. That's going to do good for rent prices. We have an artificial bubble pretending that there's too much population demand, but really it's just overinflated by illegal immigrants who are living here where I lived at the time in California. So removing them was going to do a net positive for our economy. He said no new wars. So I could tell you all these different things that Trump was offering. Nobody could tell me anything come out. To this day, nobody could tell me. The only thing she offered besides vaccines was abortion. Is abortion healthcare or is abortion death? If you try to convince me, oh, no, abortion is that's medical healthcare. How? The patient is you're killing the kid. That's not care. That's death. So again, if you're a suicidal, maniacal person and death is you want to see dead Americans, then yeah, then that makes sense for you to vote Democrat. But for those of us who are pro-life and pro-humanity, it just didn't make any sense. Oh my God, black people. This is not a black world. This is not Africa. Go to Africa, run for politics, and talk about black stuff in Africa. This is America. We have people from 190 different countries, not just black people. Nobody wants to hear about what black people, we've already heard it. You guys hate slavery, you hate lynching, but you love prison and you love to lynch each other with guns in the streets every night. You contradict each other. Stop. I don't want to hear about it no more. We're done with that, Salty. You're going to have to take that conversation to go to Plies' page, or who else is black? I don't know who else is black. Go to a black page and talk about this. Nobody wants to talk about it here. I don't like feckless Dems like Hakeem Jeffries, nor destructive Republicans like Trump. By the way, both are in the files. Hakeem Jeffries is definitely in the files. Trump's definitely in the files. Both Trump's not in the files asking Epstein for money. Hakeem Jeffries is. So there's a big difference. Trump's in the files because Epstein appears to have hated Trump and couldn't get Trump under his thumb. Why he thought Trump was so important seems like he is the father of the looking glass technology. Epstein knew Trump was going to be important before Trump knew Trump was going to be important, apparently. Warp speed was false. Those injections were invented. We can go back at least 25 years before the launch of the scamdemic that these injections were created. Think about it. Even if you had factories all over the world, to make 1 billion doses would take you about 3 years. To make 8 billion doses would take you about 30, maybe 20, 25, 22 years. How did you get 8 billion doses of something packaged and ready to go in 3 months? The timetable doesn't make any sense. Now, initially, they wanted to give these same injections, and you can't call them vaccines because legally they're not vaccines. We don't really know what it is. We just know that they found something alive inside of it that grows in people and it causes organ damage because it's a foreign entity that should not be in your body. And eventually it kills you. What I'm worried about is the people that it's not killing, but it's still growing inside them. So it's like you're a host. But what if it's taken over and you don't realize it? Because it's not killing everybody. There are some people that are surviving with this thing growing inside them. It's like a symbiotic relationship. And I don't. That's the part I'm worried about, because the thing they injected into you, the closest thing we have to one in nature is called the Hydra vulgaris. The Hydra vulgaris, if you look it up, it's a freshwater animal. It's like a parasite, but it's immortal. And it's the same Hydra you see from the movies, from Marvel, multi-headed organism, but it's immortal. But my thing is, if there's a Hydra that was in those things, is growing in you, blocking your arteries, damaging your organs, your heart, etc., and you die. But if you don't die and it grows throughout your body And then when you die, if it doesn't die, like, is that, like, what happens to it? And there's a lot of unanswered questions. We're only, the vaccine mandate under Biden, the last day where you had to comply if you worked for a company with more than 100 employees was only December 12th of 2021. So we don't even know what it looks like 5 years post-injection, 6 years. We don't even know what it looks like, really. We have an idea, but nobody's talking about it anymore except for me. So that's why people subscribe to my channels. They watch my videos. I talk about this ad nauseum because it's a subject that I'm never going to let you guys forget. People keep wanting to pigeonhole years of being trapped in your home, pretending there's a military guy with a machine gun outside, but there was nobody there. You just did it because somebody on a television told you to do it because you're an idiot. Effectively, you're an idiot. If you think about it, the television, not even Fauci in person, literally an image on a TV told you to be afraid of the air, even though your air conditioner is sucking in air from outside with no into your lungs, but you don't want to go outside, but the air from outside is being sucked into your house or sucked in through the vents in your car. I had this joke during the lockdown. I was like, what if you're driving down the street and a homeless person is walking across the street and then they like cough and they got whatever fake virus it is and you drive through the cough, but your windows are up, then what? So like there was a million reasons why none of you should have locked down or sheltered in place. I didn't do any of it. And I literally chronicled my journey. And that's what also got me kicked off the internet because I was at like this stripper party in 2020 July. It was like 5,000 people in this hotel suite in Caesar's Palace in Vegas. And now everybody's in there sweating, they're strippers, all these California people, mainly from like the Bay Area. They're all in there partying. And I made a video and I was like, either everybody at this party is immune or there is no virus. And I said, if I don't die by tomorrow, all this is fake. And I woke up the next day just fine. I said, yeah, there is no, they're lying. They're playing everybody. Like people, I was still flying on airplanes and partying and people were messaging me, don't get on that plane. You're going to die, Rico. And I'm looking at these people like, why are you guys so afraid of death? Death is easy. Life is hard. There's no bills when you die. Okay. You got to worry about dying because you're already dead. I'm not dodging death. I'm definitely not going to, not live life because I'm that afraid of my own mortality. I mean, if you believe in God and you love God, like you say, why are you so afraid to meet him? Shake his hand. But then again, I don't have the spirit of fear. So that's why I try to talk to people and maybe they'll think about it. And that spirit, maybe that spirit of fear comes from confusion also. After listening to David Icke and looking at the research and realized there was nothing to be afraid of in the first place, I was one of the first person to remove the fear from anyone in my radius. And I went around spreading the gospel that there is no virus, and I would show people data, and I posted on the internet, and I saved who I could from the vaccine. I saved those that I could. I did the best I could. And there are still people to this day that contact me and tell me thank you. They used to listen to me on Clubhouse and other programs talking about this stuff. Because, David Icke would talk, Alex Jones talk. Everybody doesn't listen to them or doesn't like them or whatever. Maybe it's my voice. Maybe it's, certain people resonate with certain voices, whatever. Maybe it was just the way I said it, and they thought about it. Made a difference. But I did what I could. I did my part. I didn't just sit on the sideline, put my head in the sand like an ostrich and just hope it would all blow by me. And now I'm involved, instead of right now being out getting drunk with my girlfriends or, playing video games or something, I'm literally sitting here talking to you guys for free, pro bono, having these conversations because we're adults. We need to have conversations. We got to figure out tomorrow. We got to figure out 6 months from now. I don't have the luxury to just live for today and, see how it goes tomorrow. I got to live for next year. We have families. We want our families to grow. We got to know where we're going to put our families too. So that's why I'm having these conversations with you as well. You know? Yeah, buddy, you might want to check the analytics again once this live ends. Oh my God, Salt, say it loud. Wow, oh my God, dude, bro, these black supremacists are disgusting. They're just like everywhere. Well, no, really, it's because I'm dark. They flock over here. It's ridiculous. I'm like, bro, this is not your channel. This is not content for you. This is Jesus Christ. It's like maybe I got to put like one of those filters. Maybe I'll put like a cat talking. That way you can just listen to my words and not be so obsessed with what I look like, because that's what's attracting all these fucking Marxists and communists to come over here and spread their gay bullshit about how much they hate white people and Trump. I don't care. Like, let's talk about the topic. Jesus Christ. These people are like, what's a word? Insufferable. That's the word.
Germany telling us that, well, it's not their war. We had nothing to do with it. They wanted.
Germany announced that to the world, that this is not our war, Trump. We want nothing to do with it. And what are you going to threaten Germany with? We're going to remove our bases? Get them the fuck. We don't want the American bases in Germany anymore. We don't want them. Take your bases and get the hell out of here. Because if your bases are going to attract missiles from Iran or missiles from Russia, if that's why you blew up the Nord Stream, because you got these bases in our country, then take your bases and go to hell. The Germans are saying this. The Germans are saying this, which is huge. But they're telling Trump to his face. That means the biggest countries in Europe, in NATO, have all said no to this war. They don't want to be a part of it. It's nonsensical. I guess because Israel doesn't have the same hold on them that they have on the United States. So, of course, they're supposed to say that. That's the responsible thing for these countries to say.
You know who else didn't help us? Japan. Germany telling us that, well, it's not.
Why would any of these countries help attack the country that they get their oil from? Why would they shoot themselves in the foot? There are already gas lines a mile long in some of these countries. They tried to attack the Turk Stream because Turkey has a pipeline that goes to Hungary. And they hate the fact that Hungary is a stable society. They want Hungary to be in the same boat as them. And some people, they caught some Ukrainian guys trying to attack their pipeline. They caught them like 2 days ago. These countries are, the smart thing for them to do is stay out of this nonsensical war, because there's no hope of winning. They've already lost the war against Russia. They're all on their knees crawling back to Russia. They're all secretly buying Russian oil at a premium. They were getting Russian oil for like $44 a barrel. But see, now they're buying from Russia through India. India puts a tax on there of about $25. So now, they're paying $89, $90, $95 per barrel of oil because of the sanctions. They have to get the oil from an intermediary. The Indians take the oil from Russia and then use their ships to bring it into Europe. And they have to pay a premium for it. So they're already hurting. Why would they want to make it even worse and compound it just because of what? An egotistical little nation that exists in the middle of the desert with a man named Netanyahu running it? Like, now he's magically disappeared into the rubble. Like, no, these countries, if Netanyahu was still alive, these countries wouldn't be talking greasy. They'd be too worried about rubbing people the wrong way. They know we lost. And they know when the smoke clears, we'll all figure out Netanyahu's gone. And the United States cannot protect anyone. So this is probably the end of the petrodollar. The question is, what are you going to do? What happens to our way of life here in the United States? Luckily for me, again, I live in a very cheap country besides the United States. I'll be fine. I can relocate. But for those stuck here in the United States, it's just not going to be so easy. And, if Trump gets us into a hole then we have to dig ourselves out of it, bro. We cannot let, he's not a king. He's not a God. We have to make these decisions for ourselves, and we have to figure out what we can do to get him back on track or get him out of the way and let somebody else be in charge. And I'm not saying JD Vance is a better option, because is he also beholden to Israel? We don't know. We don't find out until it's too late. The good thing is Netanyahu's gone. So that Israeli, so Looking Glass, I'm pretty sure, remember that secret facility I told you that they hit outside of Dimona in Israel? I'm pretty sure that the one that was 100 miles away from the reactors that they found deep underground that nobody knew it was there, I'm pretty sure that black site is probably where the Looking Glass technology was being stored. If they don't have it anymore, then what good is what good is Israel to any of these countries? They don't have to beg for their help anymore. They don't have anything to offer besides Looking Glass technology, which is what they call intel. When someone's saying, well, we get intel from Israel, they're able to see the future temporarily. They're limited. They can see the future limited because of Israel, because of that Epstein technology, whatever. But if it's destroyed, then what else do they offer? Nothing. So of course Europe's not about to sacrifice their own nations and their people for a country that probably won't exist pretty soon. Because without Looking Glass technology, and if they get their desalination plants hit, they're just going to be relocating back to Europe in the first place, because they're not from that region. We all know that, right?
Their war, we had nothing to do with it. They wanted me to go and tell them everything I was doing. We didn't know anything about it. Well, if I would have told them, they would have leaked it, and we wouldn't have been nearly as successful, possibly, right? But to the victor belong the spoils. So we haven't heard that in, I think, maybe hundreds of years.
Do you still want them to stay away, or what role do you expect them to play now?
I'd rather have them stay away. I'd rather have them stay away, because I think they bring with them some problems and some difficulty. And I don't think they bring death, I mean, to themselves. But I'd rather have them stay away. We want Greenland. They don't want to give it to us. And I said, bye-bye. Okay, thank you very much, everybody.
Oh, yeah, the Epstein technology. A lot of people don't understand. Epstein was, they bombard you with all this stuff about child trafficking. They never tell you that Jeffrey Epstein was a world-renowned mathematician, a physicist, and not just a scientist. He was probably one of the most brilliant men that we can trace back in history that was able to accomplish things no one else could. Epstein he's going to have to be studied, but they won't release more information about him. We were able to discern from the files that were released and his Steve Bannon interview that he worked on a project at his ranch in New Mexico. And what he tells us is that the fall of the Soviet Union was in 1990, and that there were 1,000 scientists that were being recruited by the American government who were working on something called the Manhattan Project. He said that these scientists were all going to be displaced and have to go back to where they were from since the program was ending. So he bought a ranch in New Mexico, not far from Los Alamos, and he recruited these scientists to come there and help him work on scientific research. He slightly slips up and mentions a little bit about their research. What he said they were using was mathematics, which was his specialty, and high energy physics. And what they developed was something called genetic algorithms. That led to eventually, and he said he was using this technology and he was using these scientists to kind of study a field of science that had never been studied before. This is all in the Steve Bannon interview. Go back and watch it yourself. Or if you guys want to stick around, I'll play it and we'll go over it. He talks about how they were trying to develop the technology where they will be able to see the stock market in the future. So they were trying to predict the stock market. But they were able to do more than that. They stumbled upon a way to see more than just stocks and numbers. That's where, and then genetic algorithms, it also translates into looking glass technology. But it also, genetic algorithms was also another term to study Bitcoin. Epstein was also behind Bitcoin. It wasn't some innocuous Japanese guy, Nakamura, whatever. This is all Epstein research. And the vaccine that he worked on to get rid of poor people, specifically poor black people, he worked on it with Bill Gates, which is why Bill and Melinda were so adamant about Native American and blacks taking it first, the vaccine. That's all from Epstein's research as well. All of it. It's in the files. It's in the Steve Bannon interview. People just were waiting to hear some freaky stories of Trump with some fucking preschoolers or something weird. They weren't actually trying to listen. They were just hoping they were going to hear something salacious about Trump because people, I don't know, people have fucked up minds. But they didn't realize that they never asked about his research or what they were studying, or what was Ghislaine Maxwell's experience. What was her history? What kind of work was she doing? You guys pretend that Epstein and Maxwell were driving around with a Cadillac, pimping hoes and smacking up kids. And like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Do you understand? These people invented technology that was taken from them, and they were literally thrown under the bus. That's how it appears. Somebody wanted credit for the stuff they worked on. And they worked on it for years. Think about it. The man bought that ranch in New Mexico as a civilian back in 1993 and hired 1,000 scientists that used to work for the American government on the Manhattan Project. Like, doesn't that require some kind of clearance? Like, how would you even have access to these scientists in the 90s, in the early 90s? All this is in not just the Epstein files, but the Steve Bannon interview. So that's where that information comes from. Dirty laundry, thank you. And great, well, I mean, it just depends. Are you able to blackmail people because you can see the future, or do you actually have information on them? And think about it. They had to help. They had to blackmail the scientists. I mean, they blackmailed the politicians because it was the politicians in different states that were able to get their the laws relaxed so that they can get the emergency authorization to give these injections out to people before it was tested, or they would have never been able to give it out. That's why they had to blackmail the politicians, and so that they can get permission to give you an untested vaccine that wasn't actually a vaccine, that would have never passed, and it was never approved. What they don't talk to you about is all the scientists that worked for Epstein. All you hear about is the politician. You never hear about the scientists. Now, I've done videos about the scientists around Epstein. People only care about the politicians, which is weird to me. Like, why don't you care about the research Epstein was doing? He had an office at Harvard, at MIT. He had an office at all these different universities in their science labs, and no one's ever came to me and said, hey, Rico, I noticed that Epstein, when he was at these labs, this is what he was studying. It's like you guys never even ask. Don't you want to know what he was studying with labs and with offices at these in these science departments at these universities? Like, why aren't you interested in that? Why don't you care? What was his study? What was his research? You don't like, why don't you care? Like, that's what makes me think that the dead internet theory is true, and that most of you guys are fake bots. You're not even actually real people. Some of you are, but a lot of you are just language model programs. Basically you predict, with word prediction, and that's how it seems like there's an AI talking back to you, but really it's just dead internet, just bots, not real people. Because an actual human would be curious, like, what were they working on in those labs? Because I know he had a lab. What was he studying at Harvard? What was he at MIT? What kind of research was he doing with the students? I mean, he has an office there. He has a lab. And no one ever asks. So I started looking into it. I bring up all these different things that I found, and it's like you're not really there. You're not there. Steve Bannon is more than a propagandist, and so that's crazy. You call somebody a propagandist, and then you just completely block out whatever they're researching, whatever they're talking about. You know, that makes you a fool, right? That makes you an idiot. You literally come up with your own bias, and you won't even listen or look into something. That makes you a fool. That means you have limited knowledge about everything. You only listen to somebody's a woman who's black, who's gay, but also she's handicapped. And that way she checks all the boxes. And now you can call yourself listening to her. That makes you an idiot. That makes you a person of limited IQ, because it's not that you won't learn, you just can't, because you only can listen to certain people. I listen and research and read everything from everybody. So there's a difference between us, you know? So that's why I'm going to have a larger base of data to pull from than you will. All centralized systems have failed. Yeah. And you know, the central banks, Iran, Russia, and China are only countries that don't have any Rothschild banks. People have made that correlation, and it's true. That's a very good, somebody said that earlier. It is a good point. It is a correlation. Gorilla probably bought. There's a veteran I know who supports. Yeah, I mean, listen, bro, we all support Trump. That's why we all voted for him. That's why he won the election. There's a lot of blacks and gays, but they don't like anybody except black and gay people. You can't count them. Patriots, we want to find out how we can make things better. Right now, things aren't as bad as they're going to get. Gas went up 50 cents, but when it goes up $8, that's going to make a huge difference. And we're trying to avoid that. And honestly, Trump is bluffing. We're not going to wake up and tomorrow night, midnight Iranian time, their entire country is going to be destroyed all at once. We don't have that capability. We can lie about it, but the people on the ground in Iran are going to say, well, we're able to still bomb you, whether you hit our plants or you hit anything or not. So it defeats the purpose. We don't have that capability. All we're going to do is just make things worse for people in the region, and that's selfish. And what that's going to mean, if we attack Iran tomorrow at midnight, all those GCC Gulf countries, Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE, Dubai, they all know America's not going to get touched. They are. They are going to have to suffer for the sins of the father of America. They're the ones who are going to have to deal with the consequences. You know what they're going to say? Iran, we're sorry. We're going to kick them out of our countries. We'll work out an agreement with you. We don't want no more American bases in our countries. They're going to force us out of those countries. They're going to force us out, because the only reason America's there in the first place is to protect them. But if you can't protect them, then doesn't that defeat the purpose of being there? I would think so. What other good are you? What other good are you there? They let you put an American base there hoping you can protect them from Israel and the Russians. But now you provoked a war and they're being attacked by Iran and you can't stop them. America can't stop those missiles. They destroyed the Patriot missile batteries in the first days. There are no more missile defense systems in the region. So what good is it? So yeah, let America attack tomorrow. They're going to kick us out of the Gulf next week. We're gone. We're done. We're done in the Middle East. The petrodollar, I don't know how we're going to convince people to stay on it. And we can't force a petro yuan to be a petrodollar. I don't know this is uncharted territory. If we're in a simulation, it was rewrote and this is a different path. You know, people say CERN is real and we went through a wormhole and there's we're in a parallel universe now. And that's why things are happening differently than they normally would. Whatever the case is, there is no avoiding the future. The future is going to come one way or the other. Trump's bluffing. We don't have the capability to bomb them back into the Stone Age. We couldn't bomb Iraq or anybody else into the Stone Age, and we tried. We absolutely tried. We were done under Biden. Absolutely, we were done under Biden. We were done under Kamala, except we were done from within. They literally poisoned everyone. They forced you to take something that gave you and your family members cancer and heart attacks. We were still done. There's still Democrats right now pushing for you to take those shots and to sterilize your kids and to have abortions. And they're in my chat right now, and they're black. And they're in there pushing all this black nonsense, but they also push abortions and vaccines. That's why I just tell you just to ignore them. I ignore them in the real world, and I ignore them on the internet too. I just leave them on here so you can have an example to reference from. Just scroll up and read. They start saying, just type in the keyword black, and you'll see these people and what they're obsessed with. And you'll also read what they say, what they're spewing. It's horrible. And they think about it. Their population went from 13%. They're at 8% right now. Just no one's telling them. They don't know how many of them they've lost because of the vaccine and abortions since 2021. They have no idea. And screaming about racism is not going to bring anybody back. And they're past the rate of replacement. So Epstein research did work. There are some things that were accomplished. I didn't say it was a complete, failure. I mean, they succeeded. Bill Gates is still here. Fauci, they only said he failed because it's not wiping them out as fast, but it's working. That's why Fauci's not in jail. Yet you're here, outsider. Why? Oh man, listen, bro, there are no more blacks to hate. That's over. There are no more blacks. Just assume that there are no more blacks. If I was you, I'd go collect Jordans, go collect black memorabilia. A lot of them took those shots. There are no more. And the ones who didn't can't have kids. So there is no more. There's no more blacks. That's over. Let's just focus on the war. Okay, the black stuff is over. That ship sailed in 2022. So that's over. They're gone. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That doesn't mean anything. All kinds of people are in the Epstein files. That's not any proof of anything, any wrongdoing at all. That doesn't, what proof do you have? Do you have some new evidence? Do you have anything you want to present? And why are you telling it to me? Why aren't you at the FBI field office in your area presenting your evidence to them? If you don't have any evidence, then what are we talking about? Words on paper, that's what they call books too. That's a book. Okay. Are all books telling you the truth about everything? No. And do you have any evidence, physical evidence? No, you don't have anything. So you can't, this whole Trump being mentioned doesn't mean anything. People write books. Harry Potter's mentioned a lot of times in Harry Potter books. Does that mean that in 100 years they're going to say Harry Potter must have did something? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, in the United States, we have something called the rule of law. You must present a case with your evidence, and you must be able to prove your point. You got to have some kind of physical proof or testimony or some kind of admission of guilt. There's none of that. That's why there's nobody being arrested in the files, because it didn't come with any proof. It was just words. Trump doesn't like you. Trump doesn't know me. And I'm a man. I don't want another man to like me. You gays and you gay black, y'all, you guys want people to love you and like you. That's that gay stuff. I'm not gay. I don't need anybody to like me. I'm an adult. I'm a man. Nobody likes men anyway. Men are only as valuable as what we're good for, what we can provide. That's it. No one likes men. No, why are you so obsessed with somebody liking you? Nobody likes you. Nobody. Your mom doesn't like you. Okay, let's just be honest. Oh man, we got this girl Chili Willy. She's like copy and paste, and now I gotta block her. Man, and I gotta delete her comments, so it just defeats the purpose of her even coming in here and wasting her time copy and pasting nonsense. Yeah, the browning of America is not gonna happen anyway. You guys believe in abortion, and you guys aren't conservative enough to have children and have families. You don't get married. Because you guys say that marriage is akin to slavery and white supremacy. So the best thing you can do is just move to Africa, where there's more people that look like you, or move to Central or South America. But in the United States is going to remain a Christian majority country, a white majority country, because whites are still having children. The vaccine sterilized you, and then the ones it didn't sterilize, it's going to eventually be you're going to meet your maker because of it. So this country is going to remain a Christian majority white nation, thanks to Epstein's research. I mean, yeah, I mean, that means we're going to still be America. So that means America's great again. Well, we almost lost it. There was a time where it looked like America was going to get diluted with illegals and brown people who hate the country, who are only here because they want to see the country destroyed. When you ask them, why don't you move to Ghana or to Nigeria around your own people? They're like, oh no, we're here because we want to make sure we destroy white people. Just ask them. They'll tell you. That's the only reason they don't leave. But now they're not going to be able to do that because they comply. And they did all kind of tricky ways to get them to comply. They offered them jobs that they didn't qualify for and offered them exuberant salaries, even if you got to work from home. But they said there was one catch. We're not going to give this white person this job. We're going to give it to you because we want to do equity in the workplace and to battle racism and DEI. So this is what we're going to do. Even though you're going to be working alone at home by yourself, we need you to bring your vaccine card. And we're going to need you to go get the shot, both of them, and the booster to keep this job with this salary. They bought their bodies from them. It was designed for them, but it flows through other people. Yeah, it sterilizes them temporarily, but not for the blacks. No. It's much more. This is much more. It's something called intelligent design. Let's just put it like that. What about the Jews on the East Coast who are perpetual benefits, yet they have unlimited connections? What about them? They've all now been moved down to Miami. They all live in Miami now. They've been pushed out of New York. And we really don't even know what we still don't know about those tunnels. We really don't know what they were doing in those tunnels too. I was watching a video about that. I'm like, we really did pigeonhole those fucking secret tunnels under New York. Like nobody talks about that no more. That was about the craziest thing I had ever seen. Do you guys remember the tunnels? Whatever happened with that? Does anybody know? Because I don't remember seeing anything else about the tunnels. Yes, and Newsom is gone. He is a piece of shit crook. He is a pedophile protector. He passed Senate Bill 145. But guess who saved him from the recall against Larry Elder? Black Californians and gays saved Newsom. And you know what that did? That gave us 2 more years of lockdown. The lockdown in California went all the way into September of 2023 because of that recall for Newsom. Newsom ended up winning and fighting against the recall, stayed in power and kept the lockdown going an extra 2 years in California because a bunch of communists and Marxists kept them in power, hoping they were going to get another COVID check. And you want me to take those people seriously? Seriously? No. Newsom. But his wife is definitely unhinged. She's a psychopath. And I'm surprised they're actually letting her do interviews like out of the blue. But he must feel like he stands a chance in the election for president. But again, what does Newsom offer? What's he going to offer? You're going to turn America into San Francisco? Is that really what you guys want? When are you guys going to get enough of seeing the results of the black and the gay vote and seeing what it does to your cities? Go look around at the cities where they dominate the vote and they're the mayor, the governor, they're the ones in charge. Like, don't you see how those cities have all been destroyed and failed with crime? And you want to see that for the entire country? Well, then, hey, go vote for Newsom. The good thing about me is that I can leave. I love this country. I'll still work here. I just won't live here. I don't want to live around pride parades. I just don't. I don't want to see a bunch of gay kids. I think that shit's weird. I went to a restaurant a few weeks ago and every kid that worked in that restaurant under the age of 25 that was black, all of them, 100% of them were gay. That's not just, gradual. That's forced. That's planned. That's deliberate. It's not like they just naturally grew up with a, just a natural attraction to other boys. No. This was planned. This is deliberate. This is war. They'll never have kids. They'll never get married. They'll never buy a home. They'll never be motivated to take care of their children. That's going to make them want to contribute and build a society. They won't participate, but they're still here. And that's why the vaccine was created. I hope we can understand now the why, because people were confused as to why. But now that the smoke's starting to settle, we have 3 or 4 years, we have 4 years, 5 years of case study. We can see who's being disproportionately affected. But now it should be clear to everybody. The stuff that I've been saying for 4 years, it was hard for me to prove it initially. Now I have all the evidence. I can show you the data. It had to be done. The Democrat logos are, I don't understand what you're saying, Mrs. Eric Ander Vita. Newsom offers high taxes, just like the other Dems. Absolutely. The New York sewer system, it must be a conspiracy theory. Hey, when I brought that up, people thought I was just I said, no, they literally have dudes wearing yarmulkes with the little dreidels, and they're literally in the sewer, popping up out of drains. Like, how do you wake up in the morning, take a shower, get dressed, and go into the damn sewer? Like, what? That's why I'm like, are we in a simulation? Are some of these people NPCs? What's going on? And nobody really wants to talk about it. Republicans will have to stay in power because we've already seen the Democrats want to kill us off. They want to depopulate us. That's why they push killer vaccines and abortion. So we can't trust Democrats anymore with our society. And people who want to vote Democrat, go live in Canada where it's a permanent Democrat society and they have maids, medical assistants in dying suicide. You can just go there and be as suicidal as you want and they will help you. But trying to force us to pay for it here and go along with you because you don't want to die alone, that's just that's a failed strategy. We don't want to die with you. We have children. We have stuff to live for. You don't. You aborted your kids and now you can't have them anymore. So now you want the rest of us to be in the boat with you. We can't be in here with you. We can't. I respect your decision to do that, but I can't join you. I cannot join you. I'm busy. I got things to do. I would if I could. No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Yes. Somebody said that's almost funny. Hey, you know what? I'm doing the best I can. You know, for the most part, I'm just sitting here talking to some of you guys like it's just me and you. I'm looking at the analytics. This is, for me, I'm just a regular guy just getting on here talking. The numbers are great. I really just do news reports. So my videos are like 20, 30, 40 minutes. But then like in the middle of the night, I'll get on here and I'll do, let's see, how long have we been on here tonight? 3 hours and 37 minutes. And some of you have been here with me since the very beginning, and I appreciate you. Even if you're not talking or even if you're not saying anything, you don't got to leave a super chat. The fact is, you're in the analytics. I know you're here. We're talking. You subscribe to the channel. I appreciate that. That makes me want to come back and talk some more and go over these topics. Obviously, it's going to be from a right-leaning perspective, a pro-American perspective. And if that's the content that you would appreciate because you're also seeing things from this angle, I'm here for you. I don't believe in all the victimhood nonsense. I'm not going to play into all that. They're going to have to go to, I don't know, what's the Source magazine page or something. This is not going to be it. Can't do it with you. The point is, we gotta course correct Trump. Alex Jones sees it. Candace sees it. Tulsi Gabbard sees it. But the problem is Trump keeps purging people who disagree with him, and that's a failed strategy. You need people that disagree with you around. If everybody's a yes man, that's how you end up like some of these idiot actors that are in rehab or freaking OD because everyone just can't say, everybody kept saying yes, yes, yes to them. People need to say no. That's where checks and balances comes in. And obviously this is not for the greater good because, well, things are getting worse now. I can see if the results internationally were looking like the results like we have here domestically from Trump, but they're not. So that means we're doing something wrong and we must course correct as soon as possible. Liberating oppressed countries, that's not our job. That's not our job. We're not liberators. That's not, we're patriots. That means we have to keep ourselves liberated. It's not our job to go save the world. Other societies, just because they don't live like us, doesn't mean they need to be liberated. It doesn't. Everybody does not need to live like us. Everybody doesn't need to have all their food sprayed with pesticides and have abortions, pride parades, obesity problems, and where you can't even drink the water from the faucet. Everybody doesn't need to have a society like ours. What if we need to be liberated? What do you mean? What's liberation? So that their women can prostitute themselves on OnlyFans and not get arrested? You know, that's illegal in some countries because they understand if these women do too much, they're not going to find a husband. And then now it's going to be up to the government to support these women when they get older. They're not going to have kids. No one's going to marry them. A society understands that marriage is what makes you human, and that's how you build a strong society. You must have families. We've lost that. We've lost the plot in the West. I literally live in another country because, of course, I have to get married and have kids. And it's impossible. It is, with the laws the way they are in the United States, it's not possible here. So we've lost the plot. Other countries have not. So going around being the world police, that's not our job. We cannot do it. And we're bad at it. No dudes in women's restrooms. Yep, Trump 2028, MAGA, America first. Absolutely, Jake. But like I said, again, in my opinion, we're bad at liberating. We've never liberated anybody. Are the South Koreans liberated? I mean, how's their society looking? I mean, it's they're having too many problems, the same kind of problems we're having, where you're losing population, no marriages, no family. Sexual liberation was a bad thing. It's a horrible thing, horrible results. 176,000 new jobs last month. Absolutely. And there were 300,000 Black women kicked out of the workforce because, no more DEI hires, doing worthless jobs so that you can boost the quota, so that you can qualify for loans because you have a high ESG score. Now that the ESG scores have been removed, there's no need for a DEI or DEI scores. So now you can only hire people based on merit, not based on them being Black or a woman. Now those jobs can go to people who actually deserve them, not people who are insufferable and probably going to try to sue you and call you a racist because you write them up for being late 10 times in a row. You know, that's like a form of being held a hostage, knowing that you're forced to hire certain people that don't even meld, they don't even get along culturally with your company, but you're forced to deal with them and hire them because they might sue you if you fire them. That's like a hostage, and that's not right also. So I'm glad that, you know, people can now hire based on merits again. So with all the illegals being kicked out and all DEI people being fired, there are more jobs now available for Americans who want to work and who appreciate the opportunity. So that's a beautiful thing. People who don't marry, they don't understand. Absolutely. They don't. All you say makes sense, but Trump is against you. Bro, Trump doesn't know me. I never met him. I never met Trump. What do you mean? I'm not that self-centered that I'm cared about if he knows me. I'm not his fan. He's just the president. He's just a guy. He's a dude like me. He's just a guy. He's not God. Like some of you people put him on a pedestal like he's your king or he's God. He's not. He's just a guy. Like he's a guy. Stop worshiping Trump, please. Just look at him for who he is. TikTok and Instagram are poison. I agree. Distract. YouTube is the least of all the social media evils. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I would agree to a point. I mean, social media has been horrible for our society, and we have 14 years of case study, and we can verify that marriage is overrated. That's exactly what someone who's gay and Black would say, because you can't get married because you've already declared that that's a form of white supremacy, and you can't do something that you declared as white supremacy. So you're screwed. So sorry, Morpheus. And no one ever got a job because he's Black. That is absolutely not true. Plenty of people were hired based on skin color because there were quotas to meet for diversity. It's called a diversity hire. It's called affirmative action. So either you live on a different planet or you're disingenuous and lying on purpose. Either way, you're wrong. And I'm glad you brought up that point so I could correct you. Consider yourself corrected. Them jobs were mainly government jobs. And what did I just tell you the story about? The government hired 600,000 plus blacks and gays that were underqualified for these positions. There were blacks and gays that used to get on the internet and brag about how they have these jobs working for the government, and they never met their supervisor. Even though they worked from home, they never had a supervisor to oversee them. They were just getting a check and they just clock in. And then Trump became president. He fired all of them. But remember, for them to keep those cushy government jobs that were offered to them for no reason, they had to take that shot. The same shot that killed them. See, the good thing is, the reason a lot of these people had to be fired is because they know you're going to die from the vax. So it's called, what is it called when you die and you work at a company? Bereavement or something like that. The company doesn't want to be responsible for paying for the funerals or honoring bereavement benefits to families. The smart thing to do is to terminate the employment of those who are already scheduled to die. And you know they're scheduled to die because of, you can check the on their card, it tells you what date they were vaxxed for the second time, and you kind of can calculate out X amount of weeks from then. There's a whole formula behind this. I was literally able to predict the first NFL death accurately, and I did it months in advance. It was all over. It went viral on Instagram. I mean, on X or whatever. I was able to predict it. That was me. What was his name? Hamilton or whatever. Something like that. But yeah, I was the first guy to predict that we were going to have our first NFL death. I say NFL or NBA, but our first NFL death. I was one of the first people to call that before it happened. So that's another reason why you had to fire certain people, because they were only hired in those jobs just so that they can, because they were vaccine hesitant. So the only way you can convince somebody from that group to do something like that is you got to give them some money, because, well, money over everything, right? Money over everything. All they talk about is money, 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 money. It's like, okay, cool. I'll give you some money. I'll buy your body from you. They bought their bodies. It's crazy. I see people who donated their body to science, but they were still alive. That's crazy to me. But to them, it makes perfect sense. But think about it. Who cares? Remember, they were victims already. Let them tell it. They were born victims. So you can't victimize a victim. They were already victims. So really, there was no way to go but up anyway, because you couldn't get any worse. They were already victims. I'm just going over the mentality of the people that created it. Remember, a think tank, just like the one we're having here, a think tank came up with these different ideas and put it all together. Think tanks. You guys are now part of a think tank. This is how we talk in think tanks. And then we get out of the think tank and we implement certain policies and we make things happen. That's how life works, how the world works. You have people that talk, you have people that do, and you have people that do both. I don't know what that means, Bruce. Numbers are wrong. Why are you getting the 600 blacks and gays from? It's over. It's actually started. They started hiring for no reason in 2019. Underqualified people. A lot of them worked for the IRS and they worked in positions. And then they were crying when they were getting fired. But these are people who never met a supervisor. They never once had a, what do they call when they call you in to do a progress report on your progress when you're working here? They never got one, because they were only giving you that check because they needed you to take that shot. Trump came in, saw what they were doing. They fired them all because those jobs didn't exist. Think about it. You don't fire 600,000 people working from the government and the government doesn't collapse unless those 600,000 people, those jobs didn't really mean anything and they really didn't even exist. But for some reason, you needed an excuse to give these people money. Why? Because you had to buy something from them. You bought their body. And whatever your salary turned out that you received over those years was how much you charged for your body. That's the equation. None of this is rocket science. I mean, it's really simple. The American government fired. Let's ask. Let me see if I can find it online. Let me see here. Hey, Arthur, can you look it up online? How many people did it say Trump fired from the American government, like American government employees? How many did Trump fire once he became president in 2025? I know they said that he laid off like a lot of people. How many people can you find online that they talked about Trump firing in the workforce from the American government?
As of now, there's no verified reporting that Donald Trump became president in 2025. The last term he served was from 2017 to 2021. If you meant during his previous term, or your...
Oh, man, I hate when the AI is confused. Do me a favor, Arthur. We had this problem before. Oh, you know what? Let me change it. Let's see here. We'll start a brand new chat. Okay, Arthur, are you there?
I'm right here. What do you need me to help with?
Who's the president as of right now?
As of right now, Donald J. Trump is the president of the United States. He was inaugurated as the 47th president on January 20th, 2025.
Okay, Arthur. So when Trump first became president, there were reports in the media of all these mass layoffs from the American government to make it leaner. How many people that were government employees lost their jobs since Trump became president? What was that number? What kind of numbers were you seeing when you looked this up?
Since Trump became president in 2025, the civilian federal workforce has decreased by around 278,000 employees as of early 2026. This is about a 12% reduction, dropping from roughly 2.3 million to about 2 million employees. While some layoffs occurred, many of these reductions were due to retirements or voluntary exits.
So almost 300,000. Okay. How many of those people were actually working for the IRS? I was remembering hearing stories about that too.
Since Trump became president in 2025, the IRS saw a significant workforce reduction. At the start of 2025, they had just over 102,000 employees, but by the end of 2025, that number dropped to about 74,000. This means roughly 28% of the IRS workforce was reduced, with a combination of voluntary resignations, buyouts, and some formal layoffs.
Now, when they asked people to do a voluntary layoff, or they asked people to voluntarily leave, what kind of threats were given, and what did they say to convince them to lay themselves off?
During Trump's second term, voluntary workforce reduction incentives included offers like a deferred resignation program, where employees could resign while still receiving pay and benefits for a limited period. Agencies also used traditional buyouts and early retirement offers. On the other hand, employees were told agencies would be downsized, and unions argued the environment was coercive. Some legal challenges emerged over these policies, and overall, by late 2025, federal workforce reductions were substantial.
No, okay, so someone says, Rico, you said 600,000 plus. It's less than 300,000. Morpheus, you dimwit. 600,000 plus overall workforce. 300,000 from the federal government alone. Now, other companies no longer have to kiss up to you guys with because of DEI. They fired the fuck out of you too. I was just letting you know how we got to that such a large number. Half of the number that I said was already proven because it was the federal government was already employing half of you guys. The other half was under in the private corporations and the workforce. And remember, they also had to force you guys to take the jab. And now they're not forced to keep you employed anymore since the DEI initiatives ended. And also, it's going to be really expensive for them to pay bereavement if you pass as an employee. There would be benefits that would be transferred to their family members, and that would be a that would be very expensive because there's too many of you guys dying right now who comply. I hope you understand what was my point. I said 600,000 plus, and you guys probably think, wow, that's a big number. And I'm actually saying, actually, it's not that big of a number if half of that number was just the federal government alone. But remember, it was the government that pushed that into your veins. The government that has to protect itself from you. You guys are communists and Marxists. The government had to protect us from you. You wouldn't leave when they asked you to. So they gave you something to help you leave. And you get to leave Earth. Now you can't go to Africa no more. You won't ever have to worry about racism again. You won't have to worry about oppression. You won't have to worry about Jim Crow. You won't have to worry about water hoses and canines, and you won't have to worry about anything. You won't have to worry about my videos or nothing. All your problems will be solved soon. Merry Christmas to you. No, Trump's admin is the opposite of DEI, which that means you don't actually you never took a look. You haven't took a look at his admin. Trump is not going off the deep end. Republicans love what Trump is doing right now. Have you not seen the CNN polls? Nobody watches CNN anymore. So we wouldn't see CNN polls. No one trusts CNN. Not even CNN watches CNN anymore. It's CNN is gone. It's done. Nobody watches it. No one trusts it. No one pays attention to it. It's not really a thing anymore. It's just, it used to be something. But everyone figured out everything that was coming out of those people's mouths was a lie. They told you, remember CNN was screaming to you about Project 2025? Now it's 2026 and we're still here. So no one trusts CNN anymore. Communism, communist, Marxism, Marxist, socialism, socialist. Your inferiority complex against white people it's dominating your entire conversation, which I mean, I can humor it. You've been here for a long time, so I appreciate it. But anyway, I actually have another topic I want to bring up, but it's 6 a.m. So I'll be back on in about an hour with another subject. We're going to be streaming all morning and having these talks. I appreciate you guys for all tuning in and being here. Thank you guys who donated on the Cash App. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for, just being here, rocking out with me and being on the live. I thank you so much. I'll be back on with another topic in about an hour. I'm going to go get some water, have some breakfast. Remember, it's America first and America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.